my comment on the post where it was like that I had a patient one time who in his mind was a werewolf, right?
Yes, I remember now. Okay, tell me about this.
So like brand new nurse at this point in life, and this man was a werewolf, right? And sometimes you have to like weigh your options of like, do I disagree with this patient? Do I tell them, no, you're not a werewolf, and then they don't trust me, and they're like, well, you're one of them, like, you know what I mean?
Welcome to Creepalachia. We are diving into the world of emergency services this evening with Christen and Katlin. Thank you for joining us in the studio.
Hello.
We have some pros on deck, y'all, to fill us in on the policies, the protocols, you know, the terrifying experiences y'all may have had, or also, you know, happy experiences.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Our rose and thorns of the ER.
Yeah. Exactly. So let's just go from my left to right. So, Katlin, tell me about you. How did you get into nursing? What's your position? All that good stuff.
How did I get into nursing? It's kind of interesting. So I did not become a nurse because I wanted to be a nurse. This was almost 8 years ago now that I went to LPN school in 2017. But like, I knew that at some point in the future, I was going to be a single mother, right? I was married and I knew that I needed to have an income to like fall back on. So I started LPN school, and the process of LPN school is when I got divorced. And then I kind of came out on my own in 2018. And here we are. Like, I've just kind of kept going with it. And I'm really glad that I did it. I think it's where I was meant to be, where I was supposed to be. It was just one of those coincidental things that you kind of come up on with life, I guess.
Heck yeah. And you mentioned some additional certifications you recently got. What was that?
So in addition to like just, you know, my nursing license, I have like ACLS, BLS, TNCC, which is like the trauma certification, NRP, which is for neonatal resuscitation. And then also recently, like the SANE nurse program is something that I've gone through so that I could be able to give back to the community in that aspect. So,
and the SANE acronym stands for?
It's the Sexual Assault Nurse Examiner. We specialize on collecting forensic evidence in the person that is a victim of sexual assault.
Gotcha.
They give survivors a voice when they didn't feel like they had somebody to stand up for them. So she serves it's a very vital job. So it takes a strong person to do that.
Oh, it sounds like it. I could imagine. And Christen, what about you? When did you find yourself in the nursing field?
Well, my life started back, I graduated college the first time in 2006, and that was with a bachelor's in science and culinary arts. And I was like, I love to serve the community. I love to serve people. It's always been a passion of mine. I've even done mission work in high school. I'm a servant. Like, I just feel like my mission from God was to be a servant. So culinary arts, big deal. Made cakes, food, did all kinds of things. Had a restaurant uptown for about 8 years, family business. It was a great time, great experience, but like all good things must come to an end at some point. I worked nonstop 7 days a week, watched my kid grow up in front of me, and I was exhausted. So I decided I needed to change paths. 2019 hit with COVID because I was still in the restaurant business. And as you know, restaurants kind of went fizzled because you couldn't work. So I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? So I just kind of did little things here and there, helped my best friend open up another bakery, just kind of did things. And I kind of felt in a rut, and I was like, I'm getting close to 40. I need to figure out something that's going to be sustainable for me and still yet I can serve my community because that's what I like to do. And I just woke up one day and said, I'm just going to go to nursing school. And I was really nervous in my 40s. I'm a single mom, just like, here we go. My son's pretty much grown. He don't need me anymore. And I was like, I'm just going to go do it. So I just walked in one day and did it. Just kind of woke up. And so then my sister, she's been a nurse for like 12 years and she's worked in the ER for a long time. And I just kind of really favored what she did and looked up to her. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to see if I can tackle this as well. And then went into the ER and ever since, and I've loved it every time.
So what's the actual, is it a registered nurse in the ER? Mm-hmm. Is that what it is?
That's what we are, registered nurses.
Do you have LPNs in ER or
we have one?
What do all these things mean?
A registered nurse is a different scope of practice. You get trained which Caitlin's probably better define this than me, but you get trained to do like further assessments and evaluations of your patients. You can handle more critical drips and perform certain things in your scope that like an LPN who's a licensed practical nurse and her scope is not licensed to do. Like they can't do full scale assessments or critical drips, titrations, or anything like that.
What's a critical drip? Is that like what you're wearing or?
So like
No, that was a
critical
joke.
drip is like when you have a patient that comes in and like they're super sick, like say their blood pressure is super low, their heart rate might be fast, like those different things. We can give medicines that we can titrate to help fix that problem.
What's titrate?
So like we'll go up or we'll go down depending on like how the provider like is wanting to approach that. Because everything is under the guidance, like the supervision of a doctor under their orders. But it's kind of like independently, like we're doing what's best for that patient with their symptom process.
Okay. All
Like
right.
there'll be rules when it comes, like the doctor will place the order. Like say if somebody comes in and they have a rapid heart rate, we have to give them a certain medication that's going to lower that heart rate and maybe straighten out their heart rhythm. Like a doctor will put an order set in and it could say, here's this medication, titrate it 2.5 milliliters per hour every 15 minutes based on the goal of their heart rate to be between 60 and 100 because that's like normal.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like, so if you notice that you take it up to like 4 and their heart rate's still 180, then you might have to titrate it up in 15 minutes, another 2, like based on the doctor's order as you're assessing your patient every 15 minutes.
Interesting. So it's kind of like a game. I mean, not really,
It is.
but it's kind of like, oh, let's see if we can tweak things and save this person.
And some patients will be super sensitive to the medication and you'll be like, oh, and then some, it might take an hour or longer for it to actually kick in at its highest rate.
By sensitive, you mean like it'll go too low or too high?
Real quick.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. All right. So take me through school. Did you both like where do you get your RN these days? Do you get it in, can you get it in college? Can you go to trade school? Like,
So as the years have gone on, like I got my LPN at ACT in Beckley. And it was one of the best things I think that I had ever done for myself. And I think now the program is free. Like if you're 18, you live in West Virginia. But like I started there, it was an 11-month program. And then after that, I worked for a couple of years. And then like the intent, which I went back to school at the height of COVID. And so I went to Bluefield State because, I mean, it was really popular around the area. The nurses that I had worked with in the past that had come from Bluefield State, they were always super intelligent, super smart. Like they knew what they were doing. And then of course, like now there's some hybrid programs that have come out to where you can actually do most of the schooling online. And then like you have clinicals like every other weekend or every weekend and like different things like that. And then of course there's like the more north you go, there's more programs that way too.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of it can be like, individualized, like how much are you wanting to pay, like how many days a week are you wanting to go to school, like there's just different things that you can look at.
Yeah, the nursing school at Bluefield State, and I dropped out of Bluefield State, shout out, but twice, 2 semesters in a row. But isn't their nursing school like really nationally accredited?
Yeah.
From what I hear.
Well,
like,
I mean, like it's a really good school.
It is.
It has
really
a
good
very
school.
great reputation and one of the higher passing NCLEX rates based on statistics. Yeah.
Heck yeah. What does that mean?
So you go to nursing school, and now since they report that there's a need for nurses, which we can discuss that true statement later if we want, but they are fast tracking nurses. So you go to nursing school. Some people can do 2 years. I did 16 months. And then you go through all your classes that you're obligated to take to graduate. When you take your final exam, you're considered, and you pass, you're considered a graduate nurse. You then have a time period that you have to register to take your NCLEX test, which is your state licensure to get your RN license. And it's a test now. It can shut you off at like 85 questions, but I think it goes to like 180 questions. It's like a 4-hour test, 4 or 5 hour, and it's horrible. It's one of the worst days of your life. And so you go up to Charleston, or you pick different areas. I picked Charleston, but you can go to Roanoke, wherever there's a date that you want to travel to. And then you set in total quiet. They check your hair, they check your pockets to make sure you're not bringing anything in that could be of any type of.
What are you going to have in your hair?
I don't know, but somebody's had to have done it. That's the only
They'll
reason
even,
why.
like, look at your glasses.
Yeah.
Because technology, you can have like
Google glasses?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, they do everything. They even had me take off my necklace because it might hit the table and make noise. Like it was all kinds of things. But
can't someone cheat anymore? I mean, come on, people.
Not for the NCLEX. They don't play.
I mean,
and
just the name.
They even take your
NCLEX.
fingerprints.
Right.
And that's a national licensure. So it's, you take that. And then once you pass that, you get to be, you pass, you're now a registered nurse and you have an ID number and all the things.
Did you cry? Was you like, oh, I'm so happy.
You leave and you're like, did I even learn anything? Like,
right.
Because the questions, like, the more that you answer correct, it'll get away from that subject. But like, if you answer a question incorrectly, it'll really go deeper into that subject.
Right.
So it's almost like it sets you up for failure.
And the one thing it always questions you most on is the things that you have to actually be in that specialty. And it's always OB, like women's health or mental health, which you study them minutely, but like that's not something
briefly.
Yeah, you don't focus on because that's something that if you really want to educate, that's a specific field that you go into.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not going into to deliver babies, you're not going to remember all that stuff. And so you're sitting here answering like question after question. You're like, oh my gosh.
So it's like, it's a digital test. So
yeah.
So it'll be like, oh, you suck at that. So I'm going to ask you more of that.
Questions.
And then the questions will keep getting harder until you get it wrong. And then it boots down to an easier one again. And then they keep getting harder and then it'll boot down to an easier one. But they just changed the format of the test a couple years ago to where now they add like these like different forms of questions and forms like bow ties and diagrams and case studies where you just got to do a whole lot more critical thinking. But also you actually, when it gets to the second question, you'll know if you got the first answer right or wrong based on the next question. So you can kind of lead you up to be like, oh, oops, now I know what I did, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of helps you out a little bit, actually, I think. But,
okay, well, see, that'd do the opposite for me. It'd be like, I suck, I'm leaving, I'm going to like,
well, it's a horrible day. Nursing school is one of the most mentally exhausting and challenging things that you can go through as a human being, I believe. Like, it breaks you down.
Talk about that. Why?
It's just so much information and studying and their grading scales. Like, when you go to elementary school, junior high, high school, the grading scales have changed. I don't even know what they are anymore, but they might be like 90 to 100's an A or 94 to 100's an A. It's not like that. That's like a C in nursing school. And you have to pass with the C. And it's like, to get an A, it's like 97 to 100 is an A. And everything's graded by points, but you just have so much information that you have to learn and read. Like, I know at one time, you had to read 10 chapters in a week. And then your testing for your nursing testing is not like typical questions in school. They're all NCLEX-based situational questions that you have to critically think for. So you have to start fresh to train yourself to test that way. And sadly enough, you don't get a lot of motivational support from your teachers like you think you would. You know how like you're in school, if you go to high school, different things, and you need help, they'll like kind of push you along the way. It's not like that in nursing school. And I'm sure it's not like that in medical school or anywhere, but you're just kind of like, well, what,
very self-driven.
Yeah. It is. You have to do a lot of outsourcing for further education to help yourself buy other information. Like, you have to really hone in and you have to learn to say no to everybody. Like you have to. And that was the hardest part for me, is telling friends and family, no, I can't do this. I can't be there. I can't partake because I have to
Screw
study.
your birthday.
Yeah.
I ain't going.
Pretty much.
I got to color these organs.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's coloring. Is there coloring?
No.
Okay. No color.
There was for anatomy.
Okay.
But like for me, it was like at the time when I went to RN school, I was also an LPN. So I was working full time.
Right.
While going full time. So like I would have class on Mondays and Wednesdays. I'd have clinicals on Tuesday. I would work Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 12-hour shifts. And at the time I was working in Charleston. So I was like making those trips back and forth, and there was no time. And it was like any life event that could happen to me, it was always during nursing school.
Right. How did you sleep?
She don't sleep. She still don't sleep. She doesn't sleep.
So like what I would do, because I have kids, 4 total now. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. I actually got pregnant with the last one in the middle of nursing school, and nobody knew until our pinning ceremony.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah. So like it was like I still had like responsibilities at home. So I would wait until like we got home, like after practice or whatever. And like I would start studying and I'd stay up all night. I'd go to class the next day. I'd come home. I'd sleep for a couple hours and then we'd start all over again.
And then the days of your test, you don't sleep
At all.
2 or 3 days ahead, maybe even. You can't sleep. And as crass as this is, you always know when it's a test day too, because the bathroom is filled up because everybody has to keep going.
Right.
Because you just are stressed out. You got the bubble guts. You got the headache.
Caitlin's pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was pregnant.
Yeah.
You're crying. Well, we had a girl that didn't know she was pregnant and had a baby like when she left class one day. And we were like, oh. She was like, I didn't know I was pregnant either. We're like, well, that was interesting.
Must be a thing.
And the crazy part is, and this is how rogue nursing school or savage it can be, she was in the hospital bed holding her baby doing one of her presentations through FaceTime because she didn't want to lose missing a point because she could have had to be kicked out of school.
Oh, that sounds awful. But in a way, I'm glad they kind of run y'all through this meat grinder, because then what comes out on the other side is, greatness. Sounds like. Well, I mean, like competent individuals that should be nurses.
Yeah, they do put you through the grinder.
Yeah, that's
and it's one of the wildest things is the relationships that you make with your classmates, your little groups, and they end up being your lifeline because they're the only ones at that time that truly know what you're going through, and you end up becoming like a family, and it's really crazy. You never thought that. You all have a particular role. Like I was always older, so I was always like the mom of the group, or I don't know, it's just great. But then when you end up going to your pinning ceremony and you're done, y'all cry because everybody's going somewhere else, and you're like, we're never going to see each other again. We just went through 16 months of the worst time of our life, and now we're like this the whole time, and then now we're going like this. It's like an emotional. Like you almost have, it's weird. It's like you have to have a week after school just to, I don't know how do you, like, how you lose something, you go through like 12 steps or whatever. You almost have to do that because
grief.
Yeah. Because you just feel like you lost your people. It's crazy. And then you kind of wake up sometimes thinking, did I forget to do an assignment? Duh, school's out. Like it's, you're just always in panic mode and you don't know how to relax.
Sure. There's no drama like, Susie talked junk about the way I colored my diagrams. And,
no.
Everyone's just.
I don't know. I didn't have any drama like that in mine. Everybody was.
The only kind of drama that we had in our class was like you had some people that really came, they showed up, they did what they were supposed to do. They were working at the same time. They had kids, and then you'd have people like messaging you on the side, like, wanting to know if you had a study guide for the next test because like they had been out and they hadn't done anything for it, and you're like, no.
Oh yeah, no.
That was, but I also think like there's a whole different age variety. Like she said, she was older in her nursing class. Like you'll have people there was high school students like 19 years old getting ready to graduate as a nurse all the way up until like 65, I think, is what the oldest in our class was.
I was sitting by people like, you're old enough to be my daughter.
I mean, really, and somehow you all just vibe together. Like it's the strangest thing. But like, honestly, I think it was harder for me after nursing school than it was during. And I didn't realize this. And I wish somebody would have given me a warning because like you go to nursing school and you're learning the foundation of nursing, like how that critical thinking process that you need to have. But like, they're not teaching you how to be a bedside nurse, right? Mm-mm. They're not teaching you like, these are the things that you're going to like experience when you get out of school.
What do you say bedside nurse? What does this
mean? So like, there's different areas of nursing. Mm-hmm. I like to take care of people, like to get to know people, like where they come from, like what their family's like, I treat the whole person, I guess. And like when I came out of school, somebody told me, the first year of nursing is going to be the hardest year of nursing that you're ever going to have. And it's because like you get out of nursing school, you've passed this test, like you think that you're like over like the peak of the mountain. Mm-hmm. And then it's like you're over the peak of the mountain, but you're tumbling down and you're learning like time management skills. Like, how do I prioritize which patient to see? Like, yeah, this patient has this going on, but really they need TLC in this area instead. And like you're learning all these different things that you didn't get to touch base on in nursing school. And it was so hard.
Sure.
You got to learn how to prioritize. You got to learn how to chart. They don't teach you how to chart in nursing school. It should be its own class, honestly.
When you say chart, what does this mean?
That's when you go in and when you do the patients, when you go in, like, well, let's roll back. Bedside nursing is like when you go to a hospital and the nurse is by the bed.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you were to go be an infusion nurse or work at like the cancer center, that's not bedside nursing. That's like an infusion nurse. So that's kind of like what the difference is when it comes to roles. So say you're a bedside nurse. So you got to start out, you got to document everything you do. Anytime you go into the room, technically, you do an assessment, you got to do assessment. They call them head to toe assessments and a lot of times, after you've been a nurse for a while, you can just look at stuff and do certain things and do it all in a short amount of time. When you're a new nurse, you don't have that yet. So it takes a longer period of time to look at this, the eyes, airway, breathing, you check the tummy, just different parts all the way down to the feet, the pulses, look for swelling, any skin problems. And you gotta be able to do all that in a pretty quick manner, especially in the ER, because you have a short amount of time to go from patient to patient because it could be an emergency. And then anytime you go into the room and change their bed, lift their head up, you gotta do vitals, depending on their acuity, which means how serious of the condition they have. So, or how many tests you're going to do, if you're going to run labs, if you're going to do an x-ray, if they're going to have like ventilation assistance, like you might have to do vitals every 30 minutes, every 5 minutes, every hour. Each patient's going to be different and you have to know that and you have to document that. You have to document the medications, when you gave them, where you gave them, if there's a reaction, the pain level now and then. You have to document like if breathing treatments worked or didn't, what their lungs sound like then and now. If you took them a lunch, if you took them a warm blanket, what their urine is in and out. Like there's these little things on TikTok that you can see where it shows like inside of a nurse's head. And it's just like the world's going around and you just hear all these voices. That's what it's like because you have so much going on and you also have to be aware of what's going on with your other coworkers because you have to be a backup to them as well. So it can just be a lot. And when you're a new nurse, it can be extremely overwhelming. And that's something you're not taught you're not taught at all in nursing school. So you walk into this and of course you precept with somebody. So you have an older nurse who is skilled that will show you their ways, but still it's a lot of information because now it's your license, your life, somebody's life in your hands, and you want to do a good job. Mm-hmm. That's why you wanted to do this.
Are the older experienced nurses like outside smoking Newports like every 15 minutes? Like, I can't
People
wait.
Vape these days.
Are they vaping?
Well, it honestly used to be that way. It used to be like you would know who was going for a smoke break every so often.
Right.
But like when I started, there was a phrase, it was nurses eat their young, right? And that's a culture sometimes in nursing where like you'll have older nurses that are taking newer nurses and they will eat them alive.
Run them through the ringer.
And I hate that because it's like, how can you set somebody up for success, and be that way?
Sure.
But I was one of those where the nurses ate me. Yeah, because you come in as a new nurse and like I was very eager to learn. Like I wanted to know all these things at one time. You're slow because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you have all these questions. And so it's so funny. And when they watch this podcast, they'll know who I'm talking about. But they used to put me in a corner. Right, because I had all these questions. They didn't really want to talk to me because I was new and they didn't trust me. So they put me in a corner and I would ask them how to do something and then they would tell me, but I'm not a person that can like grasp how to do something like just by you telling me. Like I'll just walk in circles. And it was so funny. And then we eventually, like after about 6 months, like I kind of grew on them and we were so close. And even now, like I think that was the closest unit that I've ever worked on. Mm-hmm. But it's
like the military.
It is. It's a fierce culture to be a part of.
Yeah. And now I'm going to break the rules, Kristen. Katlin, can you move the mic down a little bit? You got the shot glasses. We was joking like every time I asked to move the mic.
Is that good?
Yeah. I'm working on it, y'all. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That's perfect. All right. So you pass, you get your first job. Walk me through, was there a moment where, and this goes for each of you individually, where you were like, what in the crap have I done? What have I signed up for?
Every day.
Oh, really? Okay.
every day. I think even now I have those feelings. I've been doing it 7 years now. I've been in different areas. And every day I think, or every other week I've walked in and I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? But I still come back just because I do. I love it so much, but it is what it is.
Yeah. What about you, Kristen?
Well, as being like a newer nurse, you walk in every day like, oh my, like you always feel like you never, like you could have done better. Like you kind of feel like a screw up a lot because you're just trying to learn everything. A lot can be overwhelming and you want to, and me, I like to be an overachiever. Like I like to do it as much by the book as possible, but at the best degree of job that I can be. Not everything can be 100% by the book, but I like it to fall in order. And so sometimes if things don't always go as planned, which they're not, but you just think I should have done this better. Like I do a lot of at-home debriefing like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, this could have went this way. Maybe I should have done this. Or sometimes we have like this group chat stuff and you read these messages and you're like, was that about me? And then you get really anxious about it and you'd be like, I haven't even been there in 5 days. I doubt it could be about me, but what if it is about me? What if I did mess up? Maybe I could have done better. And then you just beat yourself up all the time. Like the world of nursing is one that you learn something all the time. You never stop learning. So you do walk in a lot thinking, what did I get myself into? Because something's always different all the time.
What's the hierarchy like? Is there a hierarchy of like, oh, that's Dr. Jimmy Johnson. He's crazy. Or like, is there people that you look up to kind of?
There's all kinds of dynamics. Like you're trying to meet all the dynamics of each patient individually. And that can be a wild ride sometimes. And then at the same time, on the flip side, like you're trying to meet the needs of this patient by talking to the provider and like, hey, this is what I need. But then, I mean, with people, with the human race, it's like a whole different variety. It's like reaching into a bag of Jolly Ranchers and just getting a different flavor. Mm-hmm. You really just don't know what you're going to get or like what to expect sometimes.
Yeah. Is there a lot of, is there drama in the ER? Like,
I think in any profession where it is primarily dominated by women, right?
Let's get real here.
Like a sprinkle of like,
right.
Yes, there is always, in every area that I've ever worked, there's always been some kind of like tension or some kind of like, there's always something going on.
Someone may not like somebody because of this or somebody because of that. I think some days you just get really mentally exhausted. And so you might be a little more short.
Women are hormonal.
Yeah. And so somebody might take that a little more offensive and then they're mad because so-and-so talked to me like this when you're just having a bad day. Or sometimes you have things where some people might be like, they think they did their job better and maybe you should do better. I don't know.
When you're around death and illness all day, it's like, that's got to do something.
People being sick. I think it's a high stress situation. I think you find yourself being negative more than positive and negative energy can be fed very quickly. Sure. And so I think
there was like a whole different like shelf of anxiety that was created for me when I became a nurse because like they say ignorance is bliss. And like I truly believe it because, before I became a nurse, like I didn't know all of these disease processes or the signs and symptoms. And I didn't know like when I had, children, like younger babies, like I'm more anxious with them now than I was before because like I know all of the things that can go wrong. Like I know the terrible outcomes that can come from something as simple as like, like you see kids all the time riding bicycles or like four-wheelers or like whatever, and they don't have a helmet on.
Or their seatbelt in a four-wheeler or ATV.
The terrible outcomes.
Oh, yeah.
Or like the other night I was joking and I was like, when it gets warm, everybody's out riding, right? Mm-hmm. It's that time of the year.
Hell yeah.
Motorcycles, four-wheelers, all that things. But then also I made the comment like sun's out, guns out, because it's true. Like when the sun comes out and it's warm outside is when people decide to
just shoot people.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
Like I think that's when like crime, especially.
More people are out walking the streets.
Yeah. Like
getting into things. You can stay out later because you're not cold.
And hot weather drives you insane. If you don't have a way to mitigate it, they kind of cook their brains and they're like, you know what? I'm going to go rob this 7-Eleven.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Everybody goes from hibernating, like wherever they're at, to like they're out and they're trying to mingle, and then like everything just And you've seen that like in the news, like within the last couple of days, like, and so I have like this I get anxiety every time I go to work when it's warm outside.
Oh, dude, someone just shot someone ghost hunting or shot at people. I'm like, what are you talking about?
I was like,
this is supposed to be fun.
This is why I was talking earlier about, or just not to get political, but there's so many other things I feel like should be addressed.
Well, I'll put it this way, Caitlin, I like the way you're saying it. Critical thinking sucks because you start to get into this nihilistic thing of like, you know what? We're going to get in a bubble and we're just going to walk around because you never know when you're.
Sometimes it's almost like I don't even want to go outside.
Right.
Or like you hear or see, like I travel, like I try to take the interstate all the time. But then also in the same breath, like when I'm beside of a big tractor trailer, I'm like, I know what the outcome is going to be if it's me versus that tractor trailer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it creates that like.
You saw the after.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I used to ride on motorcycles with friends, but I don't care to ride on one anymore because we've seen things and you're just like, And like I do some of the ATV riding, but I get high scale anxiety every time I get in one because I've seen things that I could never unsee ever again.
You get on there looking like that kid from the Christmas Story. You're like, all right, I got all my gear on.
Yeah. I mean, because you just
don't.
Well, I mean, it's not just that. It's like what you see and whether like per se. I remember one time there was a kid that came and it was horrible. And they rolled and parts of the ATV hit and their head just didn't look the same. And it was a very dire situation. And then you had the family out in the waiting room screaming, crying, moms, dads, grandmas, and this is the stuff that we have to hear as we're trying to resuscitate somebody.
Sure.
And you got to be able to keep your composure while you're hearing, mom and dad screaming for their baby boy or girl or whoever. And you're just like, and you know what caused it. And you're just like, if you just would have had on a helmet or a seatbelt.
Does that create a pressure with you of like, oh, I gotta hurry. Like I gotta try like to save this kid.
You don't want to give up.
Yeah.
I think in those moments, like it's almost like, so I have been a mother that before, so I was in LPN school and I was in my last like couple of months of LPN school and I was in clinicals in the nursery and like I could feel my pocket vibrating over and over and over. And I finally answered and my 4-year-old had been in a 4-wheeler accident.
Oh.
I had no idea that she was on the 4-wheeler, like never, but she hadn't had a helmet on. And all I knew was that she had been unresponsive and she hadn't had a pulse for like a minute.
Oh.
And so like I kept waiting. I was already at the hospital. There was no point in me like trying to leave, like trying to go there. So I was literally just waiting.
Was you freaking out?
Because I was freaking out. I had no idea. Like I didn't know how bad it was, like all of these things. And so like I'm waiting. I'm like, I kept waiting. And then I could see her like through the window, like coming through like with EMS. And like at the time, like they only let like one person back with the child. And there was another person with my child. So I was out there like swinging, like trying to get back to my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And come to find out, like she ended up having like a skull fracture with a bleed and she ended up being transferred to like another facility. So like anytime anything happens, I don't care how they are, like I put myself in that mother's shoes or that best friend's shoes or, whatever.
It could be my mom, my grandma.
I know that feeling in the pit of my stomach, like expecting the worst, but like hoping for the best kind of thing.
How taxing is that for you though?
The weight is incredible. Like, and like nurses, I think sometimes get a bad like reputation because like, I'm so sorry. Like I forgot your water. Like, and sometimes I go home and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I forgot to take that patient a water or I forgot to take them a lunch or like whatever. But like on the flip side of the coin, like I was also trying to like whether they're 4 or whether they're 35, like that's somebody's baby, that's somebody's like loved one. And so you flip, to the other side of the perspective, like it's not just a patient anymore, like it's personal. So it's a hard, and then, whatever the outcome is, whether it's bad, like it's not as bad as we thought, or like it's even worse than we thought. Like you're having to navigate like that route with the family to like tell them all of these things that we've been doing, like what to expect, like where do we go from here, kind of thing.
Do you notice like nurses, the older nurses, like what's the longest shift or longest, how many years that a nurse you all work with that has been solely in the ER? I'm just curious if you noticed a hardened personality.
There's a nurse. She's one of the best nurses I've ever worked with. And she's been an ER nurse probably 30 years.
Yeah.
Maybe even more. And she's hard. But by God, she's an amazing nurse. And she has taught so much when it comes to getting the job done, following the algorithms that you're supposed to follow, organizing, delegating, being able to run a whole unit, an ER unit, in a manner that's fair to everybody, orderly, even when it's a hot mess, and still take control and make it run smoothly. But I mean, yeah, she's hard. She's super, and she'll hurt your feelings, but also she's who you go to if you needed your back covered, because she'll be there. And I honestly was, I don't work with her anymore, but I'm glad I got to, because a lot of people couldn't handle her because they couldn't take how tough love she could be. But I mean, that's how it was for her. And that's the best way you have to be a lot in those circumstances, especially in a place that's as busy as we are. But like I said, when things came and settled down, she would do like this whole debrief with us too, and be like, listen, this is what we did wrong. This is what we need to do to be better. And this is what we're going to do to get there to be better. But she was hard. She was rough.
So you have like a head nurse in the ER?
With every like nursing unit, whether it's the ER, the ICU, like whatever floor, you have a charge nurse that kind of like navigates and like sets the flow for the ER. Or like she said, like you do try to keep it as fair as you can, but it can't always be fair, but like you also try to compensate like when it's not fair. But I think like each year of nursing, like each tragedy that I've encountered has put like a layer of scar. Like there's never been a patient that I haven't shed a tear over though. But then also on the flip side, like especially in like things either you didn't expect it to happen, or it's a small child, or like it's just tragic. Like death is tragic in itself. Like it's hard to go from like being tearful like to just stepping away and like putting a straight face on and going on and asking the next patient like what can I do to help you?
Yeah,
sure.
Like you might have coded a 1-year-old and had to watch the mother cry in the floor, but you still have a patient over here that you have to be able to come out straight faced and go to them. And sometimes I can say, like, for instance, this happened, and, take care of them, act like nothing even happened, and have all your thoughts slowly become organized again while you're still dealing with what happened in the previous room. And you'll even have times, and it's just weird. And then you get, I don't know, you just in your head, you're just like, this can't be real. Like, I remember one time we had somebody, they've come in and they're maybe having a heart attack, and you're trying to get them stable to go to what we call the cath lab to get a procedure done, to maybe put a stent in, open up an artery or whatnot. And you'll have a patient from another room come over and be like, my mom needs you over here. And you're like, we're in the middle of a life-saving emergency right now. Like, have some compassion for this person and their family, because this person, if we don't get them stable and off, they could possibly die right now. Like your mom, I mean, I don't know. You just think to yourself, I can't believe these people sometimes have audacities to come into emergency situations and be like, my mom needs you right now because she wants her cup of water.
Sure.
You're like,
you're really just doing your best. Like,
and you're just, you try to keep without losing it. And nurses get this thing, it's called a gallows is what it's called. And after a while, it's kind of like a weird sense of humor. And sometimes that's the only way you can get by.
Like the coping, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I get the giggles.
Yeah.
Like,
and they think you might be insensitive.
Or like just crazy, I think. Like, but I mean, it's either you like let it completely overtake you and it like breaks you down and you can't go on. Or like
You'll become mentally unstable.
Sure, you gotta have humor to fight
the dark humor. And I think every nurse has a sense of dark humor where, like, I think people will look at you and be like, well, why aren't they having the response that, like, I expect? And it's just because you get so, like, I don't want to say numb. It's just something that comes with the area.
Sure. Comedy was born from grief.
Right.
Mhm.
That's where comedy came from. So,
and especially in the ER, like, everybody comes to the emergency room because in their mind, they're having an emergency, whether it is or whether it isn't. I love people. So, like, it doesn't matter to me. My favorite patients are, and I love taking care of them, are the new mamas who are, like, anxiety ridden with this new baby, like there's something wrong. Or these new mamas where this baby has been crying for a long time. They don't know what's wrong. And another nurse and we will sit and fight over who gets to hold the baby.
oh,
Like, my favorite thing is to take that baby from a mama and give them a second of peace, or like, hey, I know this is terrible right now, but this is all completely normal.
sure. I'm so grateful for the ER because, I mean, I've paid $1,800 to have an ingrown toenail removed. You know, I'm
Yeah.
just glad that it exists so I can go there and have this thing taken care of. So, it's expensive,
Very
but
expensive.
let's talk about that. What kind of greenbacks are we talking, y'all? What kind of money can I make if I want to go be an RN?
I think it varies. Like, I think I don't take benefits, right? Which came back to bit me.
What does this mean?
So, like, I don't have insurance.
Okay.
Right. I work my commitment 2 to 3 days a week and then I go home. But it used to be like when I first started, it was nothing for me to work 4 and 5 days in one 7-day period, 12-hour shifts. And it got to be to where that kind of, like, really burned me out. So I've taken a step back so that I can give back more. But, like, I don't know. I think it's different everywhere you go. I've made less in some places than, like, driving an hour and a half than what I make driving 25 minutes. But, like, I think the median is like 60 to 70,000 a year, I think, for an RN.
Is travel nurses a thing?
So honestly, they have done away in our area, like, because they have learned that, like, they could pay people that live closer less money but still be travel compared to, like, the travel nursing that we saw, like, during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to be a travel nurse, a lot of people have to travel outside of that 60-mile radius, if not more, to make, like, more money than, like, we saw during COVID.
Which money's not that great.
Well, especially with our
anymore.
cost of living.
Yeah.
Well,
But
when you combine it with what you're doing,
Yeah.
the stress from that, it definitely comes in. Of course, 60, 70,000 is a great living in a place like West Virginia. Now in our area, I know things are changing, where people from out of state are buying houses sight unseen. It's caused the housing market to go crazy to where, like, you're paying, $350,000 average price probably in the Beckley area for a house. But even still, so is it like a contractual basis? Do you sign a contract?
No, I don't sign a contract. I work for the facility. I don't work for a company.
Okay.
So I just continue doing that. And
I'm a full-time employee, so
she works her 312s.
I work 312s and then sometimes 412, sometimes 5, depending on if I have to pay a certain bill. I do get insurance. And then only kind of contract you sign is like if you want a sign-on bonus or something like that. You got to work a year to get all your money.
How do they decide scheduling? Are you on call ever, or?
Now in the winter, you can volunteer to be on call. So just in case people can't show up to work, but no.
They pay you overtime?
Yeah. Well, if you worked your 3, it's overtime. Now
after 40 hours.
But now some code whites, like different things when it comes to that, they can offer benefits if you're coming out, triple
Like
incentives
and
and different incentive options for like if you stay at the hospital. So they'll offer stuff because you're right there, so they can come get you. But I don't know. You have, like I said, you have contract workers that make different. You have PRN, which is just as needed. They make more. Yeah.
What is that?
So it's per diem. So like my commitment is technically 2 days a week. I almost always work more than 2 days a week.
She sure does.
But honestly, like I have like this guilt. Like although like if I know that say there's like, I don't know, there's 30 patients waiting for a bed, right? I'll feel guilty and I'll go in. Like I'll wait for like my childcare, like my fiance to come home and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to work. Just because like I cannot stand the thought of like people that, because she said it's like a family, right? To be struggling, like to care for these people. So I'll go in a lot. The last, gosh, I don't know. I've been working 3 days a week, sometimes 4. But
Yeah.
Got to pay some stuff off, you know.
So you pay your bills.
Take care of them babies.
Yeah.
I've got,
Make your little savings. Go on your little vacations.
yeah.
Get on that Dave Ramsey plan.
Yeah. Oh,
Do you,
gosh.
you like Dave?
I know
I'm a
some
big
Dave
fan.
Ramsey. I loved it.
Dave Ramsey's done a lot of
the
good.
cash envelope system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Ramsey's got a lot of people out of some binds.
Which I don't, I love the financial advice, but I like it because they don't really, like, he's religious, but he doesn't really say, he doesn't really bring it up a lot.
No.
It's mainly just really sound financial
advice.
advice.
But you know, like
the
over
baby
the years,
steps are,
I've
The-
noticed
thought it was
that,
like 8 steps or something.
It's so
7.
much harder
7,
to do
something like
Dave
that, I thought.
Ramsey than it was like 5 years ago. Because, you know, when I started in nursing 7 years ago, an LPN at a hospital, I made $14.40 an hour. So like every 2 weeks, give or take, that was like $800. The most I ever made as an LPN was like $1,200 every 2 weeks. But I lived better then than I do now, I think, because of like my rent at the time was like $600. My rent now is like $15. You know what I mean? But
and chicken nuggets times 4 now.
yes,
So
Can't even
And I mean,
afford a
like-
chicken. I
No.
mean,
my groceries, it used to be like for COVID times, like I could pay $250 every 2 weeks for groceries, and it was more than enough. And now I'm like pushing $600,
Yeah.
if not more,
so
every 2 weeks.
No
When
doubt.
they're offering
That's
these
for like 12 bags.
So it's like I make more money now, but it's almost like I'm living the same
Sure.
just because.
it's why when they offer these shifts or like incentive pay, you're like, I'll be right there.
Mhm.
Do they raise, which we're not going to talk about where y'all work, but I would like to know, is it typical for a hospital to adjust for inflation every year and kind of raise wages? Or
Some facilities do. I've worked
Yeah.
at different facilities. Some facilities offer like a cost of living.
Increase.
Yes, but like it was never like this crazy amount. It would be like $1.20 an hour, which $1.20 is $1.20, I guess. You know what I mean? But you know, I've worked also like in one place for a couple of years, and the most I ever got in a raise was like 21 cents.
Mhm.
I went from making $14.20 to $14.41.
Is it union or are nurses not union?
Now there
Some
are
are.
Some
some
are.
facilities that are union.
RH used to be union.
Yeah. Like Appalachian Regional, like they're like one group of facilities that they're union. And you know, that can be conflicting too. Some people would rather work for a union
Yeah.
facility. There's profit and nonprofit facilities that
Mhm.
you can work for. I found over the years, I don't want to work for a teaching facility because I've worked for one. And then I also would rather work for a for-profit facility opposed to a nonprofit facility.
Why is that?
There's a lot of politics and healthcare. And I mean, you can deep dive into that all day long. Like, you know, how they get reimbursed for different patients, like up to the top of like administration. Like you'll have the number one person of like a company of a group of hospitals that's making ungodly amounts of,
Slinging
you know what I mean?
cash.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, like a nonprofit facility, they're not making anything extra off of the patient. They're just charging for their services. And then, you know, everything that they need for their care is like included in like one package. But I found the care, in my personal experience working for a facility, the care for those patients wasn't as great as it was for a facility that was for profit, which is why I've kind of like jumped from one lily pad back to the lily pad that I was back on.
Sure. Yeah, that's a double-edged sword because this doctor's wanting a Lamborghini, so he's wanting to save the most people. So to do that, he has to upgrade his stuff. He has to charge more. He has to do all these certain things, but in turn may have a higher success rate because of being good
for the
at what he
benefit of
does.
the patient. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I could imagine. And then that's where you get into like HMO and like the network
and
stuff.
you know, a lot of people think that like when they come into a hospital to be seen, that a nurse will label them based on what insurance they have. And I've heard this a lot, but like, I have no idea. I have no idea what insurance you have, like how much it pays, how much you have to pay. I don't care. Like, I'm going to treat, you know, we're in a poverty-stricken area anyways. I'm going to treat somebody off the street just as well as I'm going to treat somebody that's a VIP NFL player.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It makes...
Sure. And there's a lot of good nonprofits doing great work, and you'll occasionally find someone who was like, you know, I'm Mother Teresa of the medical world, and I'm, you know, so good at what I do, and I want to make no money, and I want to do it right here in the coal fields. You know, there's a couple of good organizations like that. But, you know, for me, if someone's working on my heart, I want them to be good enough to like
fix it.
Have the 20
Success
vehicles and the big house and all the, I want you to know that you are good at this and to know exactly what to do with my heart. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's an interesting conversation. But being in a poverty-stricken area too, you don't want to slight anyone else. No. So I like what you're saying there.
I treat everybody. I give the best care within my means at that time to every patient, regardless. I don't care if you can pay. I'll try to talk you in to staying, and a lot of facilities will offer like charity, like to where they can write off a portion of their bill or whatever. But I don't think that it should ever affect the kind of care that somebody receives.
Sure. So the ER doesn't turn anyone down.
It's
right?
illegal.
It's illegal.
It's illegal. But I mean, in my opinion, healthcare is a right. It's not something that you have to earn or should be given or privileged. It's it's a right as a human being to be healthy and to be taken care of. Like, I don't know where healthcare has become a thing now that you honestly have to decide, do I want to go to the grocery store or can I go get this taken care of? Like,
I don't know. It happened to me.
And to me, it fathoms me that we're in a place now. And that when you go and look at other countries and the way their healthcare system works, there is some disadvantages. But overall, we're the wealthiest nation. We invest more money, spend more money, and yet we're a nation that more people are sick and don't live as long, and we have more comorbidities than anybody else.
Sure.
And it's really sad. Yeah.
And two, I think the pause that they have of going is that, $1,600 bill that's going to come for that 3-hour bee sting visit or,
whatever. Yeah.
Which is understandable too, but it's also very sad.
Like it is very sad.
It's really sad. We're on one of the only countries, the MRI machine's been around for how long? Forever. We're still one of the only countries that it costs more and more and more to use it. It should cost less and less and less. It's nothing new. Like in Japan, it might cost $150 to get an MRI because it's not new technology. Here, it's going to cost $20,000. But for what? Because it's not new. It's been around for, you know what I'm saying? Like, but you have to do all these scans and do things done. You have to get it done because you got to be able to diagnose the patient properly when it comes to an order of getting things. But it's just crazy because, I mean, I could go on this forever.
Oh,
but
no,
It's really sad.
It's just sad. And so people come in and they neglect their health thinking they're going to be judged or they don't deserve it. And that a nurse is going to maybe judge them as well. And that's not the case. We legitimately took this oath to take care of you in our best manner that we know how to get you the services that you need to get better. And a service as in we're not your servant, but we are a healthcare provider here to provide you care and the responsibility that we'll do what we can do to give you the best care that we can give.
That's beautiful. That's a good way of putting it. And but insurance too. I mean, everyone can agree that's listening. It's not.
It's
perfect.
a joke.
It's far from perfect. I mean, I checked on insurance for my whole family because I'm an entrepreneur, and it's kind of like I was curious. I offer benefits to our team that is not affiliated with Creepalachia at all. But I think it was like $25,000 a year or something to have an okay plan.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not a plan where you can go anywhere you want. That's
Right.
like you got these set
They
of
pick your
people.
providers.
Yeah.
And you got to go through hoops to get certain procedures. Like if you're having problems, you got to wear this first. You got to try this first. So you're spending all this other money for all these other types of care to just get like there was a patient once, this beautiful lady, and she kept having AFib RVR. Do you remember her? And she kept coming in. We had to keep shocking.
I've seen some.
And all she needed was an ablation. And they're
paddles?
like, yeah. And they're like, you have to be shocked this many times before we can give you an ablation. And you're like, that is torture. But that's our insurance.
Tangent, when you touch the paddles to the chest, do they go? Boom, boom?
Now we
put these
there was like
stickers
pads.
things.
You
that stick on
can manually use the
Yeah, we don't
paddles,
really use
but
those anymore.
Oh, okay.
These are these sticker
It's not
things.
like ER anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Not like the
Yeah.
movies.
It's not as-
There's just these little sticky pads that can conduct electricity, and you just hit the thing and everybody clear. And then, yeah, but it's actually kind of righteous to see. It is the same, but but it's just the whole point of being like that, though, because this poor lady had to go through all these hoops just to get what she needed.
That's awful.
And it cost all these services when she just could have had that one service.
Sure.
And I work in the ER, right? I've worked in the ER for almost a year and a half now. But I got super sick back in September. And again, I don't have insurance.
Sick wasn't the word. I thought she was. Oh, it was
And
scary.
What kind of sick?
So I didn't know at the time, but I started running a fever, shortness of breath, like all the things. I was still coming to work.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah. Because I was like, I can't call in. Like, I have babies at home. Like, I still have to pay for groceries, all these things. This had gone on for 10 days, right? I tested myself at home, like, for the flu and COVID, and everything came back negative. So I was like, well, it's just a virus, like, whatever. So I had come in, and mind you, this is after 10 days. And I knew that I could barely, like, I was having a hard time walking.
She could barely walk and talk. I mean, she was like, it was
sick.
bad.
And so, like, I was in the middle of taking care of a patient when all of a sudden it was like my vision just started kind of tunneling in.
And I remember walking by her and she's like, Christen, I can't breathe. And I was like, do what? And then, yeah, she about passed out on the floor.
I did. And then, so like, I collapsed in the middle of a shift. And every day, like, and I tell any patient that comes in, like, well, I didn't want to come in because I didn't think it was serious. And I'm like,
Did you have a clot?
So what happened is like, every day that I worked for those 10 days, I would message somebody and be like, hey, is it busy? Who's working tonight? Who's the provider? Right. And then I would talk myself out of coming in because I was embarrassed, like, coming to the ER for flu-like symptoms because I didn't have insurance. And that's like one of the big things is a lot of people come to the ER because they don't have health insurance, because we can't turn you away. We will treat you. We'll give you medicine or at least a prescription. And you're not going to have this crazy upfront cost of like $200.
Mm-hmm.
And I had kept talking myself out of it. So then I collapsed, and the provider there was like, no, you need to be seen. Like, you need to stay.
Yeah. And like a couple of us nurses was like, no, you have to be seen. Like, this is not right. And her lungs sounded horrible.
So come to find out, like, I guess our test is more sensitive than like the test that you can buy over the counter. I had COVID for all those days. And I had gotten like a complicated COVID pneumonia, and it had like even gotten as bad as to like it converted to pulmonary vascular congestion, which is like when it starts to put like strain on your heart. Like there's like these sacs in your lungs that can kind of control the fluid. Well, they weren't doing that anymore. And she told me that if I didn't stay, that like I would have gone home and I would have died.
Yeah, it was bad.
And I'm 29 years old, you know what I mean? And I couldn't walk to the bathroom without being like bent over, like not being able to breathe. And then I get home and I'm like, man, like I can't afford this hospital bill. It's like $110,000. Like, how am I supposed to?
Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you do?
It's going to be there forever.
Here's $10 a month.
Here's $10.
All you got to pay is $1. As long as you're paying something.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. If anyone's listening, but do they charge interest?
I don't know.
I don't
Man.
know either.
I look at it every so often. You know what I mean? But it's like one of those things to where like when patients come in and I'm like, I get it. Like I totally understand, but
I'm sorry. That's awful.
It's one of those things.
Well, that's why no one likes to go to the hospital or go to the
Yeah.
doctor. Because I mean, that's something that they'll be stuck with the rest of their lives.
How long was you in
4 days.
ICU? Okay.
Yep. 4 days.
4 days?
And
that's it?
So I ended up having to have
Did you go to ICU?
No, they almost put me in the ICU because my blood pressure dropped. But I was like, well, let me just get up and walk. I'm not going to the ICU.
Yeah, because if she went to ICU, probably would have been triple that.
Was it the $10 orange juices or something?
So, like, what it is like where I had COVID, there's like a special medicine that they can give you. It's
Paxlovid?
Yeah, like Paxlovid or something.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it's
and I ended up having to have like 4 bags of that. And each bag itself is like 20 grand.
Come on.
Yeah. I mean, it helped, I guess. But
my goodness.
So I totally like sympathize with people that
don't even, I mean,
yeah, that
I
was
paid
horrible.
$400 for a freaking bottle of Life Juice for so many, which I think is going to be back there again. So many years just to live costs $400 a month for this bottle of insulin.
Yeah, it's insane.
Man, that's awful. I would think so. Are your immune systems trash? I would think it'd be like part Teflon.
Yeah,
like I would think you all
like.
I don't, and I haven't gotten sick since then. What happened is I am a sucker for the babies. I love the small children and the babies.
She's a sucker.
Like, I don't care if they're not my patient.
We have 4 of them.
I have 4 of them. Like, I keep toys like in my bag. I'll go find them stickers.
Coloring books.
I'll give them.
Make little things.
Little stethoscopes. Like, I really go above and beyond for my babies. But we had a baby there. Like, it was like 3 days before I came down with symptoms. He had come in. He was, fever, congestion, like all these things. Well, just his dad was with him. Dad was super overwhelmed, needed a break. And I was like, give me that baby. So I was holding this baby just like you would any other baby. Like, his belly was to my chest and he's just looking at me. And I had a respiratory therapist over my shoulder giving him a breathing treatment. Well, this baby had COVID. I didn't know that at the time, right? Not that it would have mattered. I still would have held that baby. I may have worn a mask though. But like, that's exactly where I got it from.
Oh, that's where you got it from.
That's where I got it from. I mean, thankfully, no one else in my house got sick, but I was.
Yeah. This has been a horrendous season for flu. Like, it's been horrible. That flu A has really taken people out. Yeah. And I just, by the grace of all, have not contracted that or any of the RSV that's been bad. None of it. I was like, I guess we're just around it too much.
Means your protocol's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we don't know that they have it.
No, that's the thing about the ER is you don't know what they have until you run the labs and the tests. And then you'll be taking care of a patient for like 2 hours and it comes back, this patient now has COVID or they have flu A. And you're like, oh, well, guess I could have worn a mask for that. Yeah. But I've already been exposed. And, and then one time you'll have like flu, RSV, COVID. And you're just like, well, the juices are mingling, what do you do? You just hope you don't get it. Even if you wash your hands and wear a mask, you're still.
I hope y'all have an employee's restroom because I know what goes on in them freaking ER restrooms and it's not fun.
We don't really have a particular employee one.
You don't?
No, there's like one in like a hallway, I think, that a lot of us will go to. But sometimes, honestly, as a nurse, at least me, I've held it so long that when I finally get a chance to go to the bathroom, it's the closest one.
I don't know that we have a really good EVS staff down there and they clean those bathrooms.
What does that mean?
Environmental services that they do the housekeeping and we have a couple and they really clean. There's like one bathroom that's in question sometimes that gets used more, but we have a couple. I mean, and they clean them pretty well. They stay really up to par. Like I wouldn't have no problem using them.
Well, public restrooms, I just automatically assume they're all gas station bathrooms.
Yeah. I do too.
But the ER
now
would have a cleaner
there's
one.
some better than others. Don't get me wrong, but really around there, they're not that bad as what you would think they would be, considering how much traffic they get.
Sure, and we won't mention where you work, but. Have you all ever worked at a place that kind of gets a bad rap and you kind of want to talk about how that feels and what you'd like to tell people that may not know what they're talking about?
Well, I think it's like that saying, like, you don't know it until you've lived it, right? And like, people are like, well, I wouldn't go there. Like, I wouldn't take my dog there. Like, or like I've worked in the jail and that's enough said. Like, the jail system in itself, nobody wants to go to jail. Nobody wants to be there. Nobody's happy to be there by all means. But like, you never know what's going on the other side of the curtain. And like, or even on the other side of the ER. And like, we have to remember too that like, we're all human, right? We're all subject to that percentage of human error. And, or even that like in being human, like I'm not going to be like 100% perky like all the time. Or maybe sometimes like, and again, there's the whole different dynamic of the person. Like there's sometimes a person comes in and they're sick, but like really they need that extra love of like a friend or like a family member because they don't have anybody.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's like hard sometimes like to remember that like, or sometimes not everything is the nurse's fault. I think I get that a lot because like if imaging's not back, it's my fault. Like they've been here 5 hours, or where are my labs at? And they've been here 6 hours. And I'm like, my hands are tied. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like, I'm so sorry, but
people come into an emergency room thinking that they're going to get emergency style services a lot for a non-emergency situation. You know, when you come in and you've been stabbed, been shot, or you've had a motorcycle accident, heart attack, that's an emergency service. Things are going to go a little faster. But unfortunately, like a kidney stone or a sore throat is not going to be considered directly an emergency service. Sometimes these things that are emergency services take priority over those non-emergency services, so they might trump some of those to the back. So people, anytime you go to an ER non-emergent service, you're going to be there at least 5 hours. Like you just go ahead and count on it because you have a lot of things that we have to wait for that's out of the nurse's control.
A lot of times it depends on the volume of patients that we're seeing at that one time too.
And
plus we got to pay the power bill, Kristen.
Well, you know,
that'll be about $9.75.
Who do you see the most? The nurse. Who's always there? The nurse. So we get like the brunt of all of the disgruntlement, and you're just sitting there, and then it shines downlights into like you're not doing your job, and you're like, no, I'm busting my tail here. I mean, I'm making calls. I can't rush a lab machine. I can't rush, that has nothing to do with me. I can't rush a radiologist reading a chest x-ray, ultrasound, or a CT. It's 100% out of our realm. And yet they want you, they just take it out on you. And so you always have to be like a buffer, and then say somebody just rips you a new one, and then you're just kind of upset about it. Then somebody else will say, well, that nurse didn't look like she even likes being there. Well, no, it's not that I don't like being there. It's just somebody literally cussed me out and made fun of my mom. Like, you didn't even see it, you know?
You know what I mean?
And it hurts. Or you have people that'll sit there and make judgments on something they saw, not knowing the full story. And then you get like all these social media posts or just things talking or bashing about places and hospitals or videos. And it's like, that's not even at all the story. It's just the story you wanted to put out there, and it makes people look bad. And so it discredits the hard work that you put into it and the passion that you have for the job. And it can be very discouraging because that's what people read and that's what people see. And that's what they choose to believe. And people feed off negativity and they love the drama. And so it's just sad because you don't see enough what a good job you did. You see more of what you could have done better, even though it's out of your control. You could not have done any better. And it can be exhausting.
And it's like, even when whatever you came there for, like, even when your results are back, I can't tell you. Like, the doctor has to tell you.
It's out of our scope.
Then it's like, well, it's my fault because they haven't heard anything in a long time, or like whatever. And sometimes it's exhausting. And my favorite phrase is, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Like, I'm doing the best that I can.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, there's like a lot of things that you can't do because it's a doctor's order, up to even a diet, if they can eat or not. And people take it out on you. And you're just, and it represents, you gave bad nursing care, but it's not the nurse's fault. It's not in our scope to make certain decisions. So I can, walk you to the bathroom. I can bring you warm blankets. I can roll you around, you know what I'm saying? But there's just certain things I can't do. If I did my scope of my practice, then it's good nursing care. Just because you didn't get what you thought you should have gotten from like a provider or somebody else doesn't mean that nursing care was any bad. And we should not continually get punished and yelled at for other things, because it's out of our scope. We can't help it.
You ever clapped back on somebody and was like, I probably shouldn't have told them to F themselves?
I've never really gone to that extreme.
No.
It's just
Right.
kind of like,
Good for y'all.
by all means, like, if there's something you can do to help me do this better, then please do so.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
We're frustrated.
You know what I mean? Like, I've ran all around the hospital trying to find things for patients, or
Mm-hmm.
trying to set up services, or whatever else.
Get them help, get them rides.
Not every patient is like this too, though. But
no, it's
you have really great people that come through. But it's kind of like, I've always said this. It's kind of like when you go through like a fast food restaurant and they hand you a receipt with the survey. Nobody ever fills out the survey when they're 100% happy with everything they got. But like, you're almost certain that they're going to fill it out when there's a free sandwich involved.
Oh, yeah.
or
You know what I
or
mean?
you
And
missed the cheese that one day or something.
Yeah. And I mean, the abuse sometimes, like, I couldn't tell you the amount of times, and this isn't going for like patients that don't know what they're doing, like they're not in their right mind, but like the amount of times that I've been cussed or I've been hit by somebody that does know what they're doing and they are in their right mind.
You've been hit by somebody?
I've had
Can we
more-
track them down and slash their tires?
And I mean, it's almost like it just comes with the.
No, that don't come with
It shouldn't, but
you should get
it's
tasers.
Yeah.
Be
It
like,
shouldn't, but we're expected. I mean, you've had people that threaten you.
I think the one thing that I can remember the most is one time I wasn't even the primary nurse of this patient. I was just trying to, like, as she said, buffer a situation. It was a young guy. He was upset because he was being discharged, but like the way that things were going, like whatever he was being discharged with, like was going to be at his house and wasn't being brought to the hospital. And he was mad. He was cussing. He was name calling. And so I went in the room and I was like, what can I do to make this better? Like, I can't fix this, but what can I do? And he, cussed me from one side to the other. And then at the end of it, he told me that it didn't matter how he talked to me. It didn't matter what he called me, because at the end of the day, I still took an oath to take care of him. And I had to continue taking care of him.
And we had that, and then before you had that one and told us that we were his servants and we will do. No, he can talk to us and yell at us and threaten us any way he wants, and we still have to do what he says.
And you do.
that is BS.
I've had people ball their fists up at me because it was taking too long and just try to scare me and tell me that they're, look how angry I'm getting. You don't want to see what could come of this. And I'm like, well,
That's what they said. Like, oh,
Mhm.
dude, you're like,
I've
you're
had
on
patients-
meth.
like they're trying to scare me, and I'm like,
I've had
okay.
patients put earplugs in because they didn't want to hear me when I talked to them. But then, like, when you do talk to them, they'll swing. You know what I mean? And,
Been bit
yeah.
just because they didn't want something. You're trying to help them.
You've been
They
bit?
come at you. Not hard. Now we have had nurses that have legitimately lost their fingernail from being bit, but no, yeah, you have to. I've had, yeah.
I had a patient one time that told me that I should be scared when I walk out to my car the next morning because he was going to be waiting for me.
Oh,
Do you
I
call the
remember that.
police there?
Yeah, I remember
didn't.
that. I
I
ended up having to take over on that one.
just kind of casually walked out to my car.
This guy,
He wasn't waiting for me, but I mean that's
he did threaten her.
Are
yeah.
y'all like a hockey team? You're like, bring in the enforcer to take care of this.
Funny
one.
enough is you might think that, but
honestly we take care of
we
each
carried
other.
each other. Like I said, like guy stepped up to her and I was like, I'll go handle it. Like, don't go back there. Don't you go around him. Like, I got this. And then printed out some policies and stuff. And I mean, the dude, I don't know what his problem was, but for whatever reason, she didn't even say or do anything wrong. He just
Or
decided to.
I think that one was like I couldn't do something that wasn't ordered, and he was mad at me because it wasn't ordered. But like, what am I? You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah.
It's just part of it.
It
Like,
can get kind of rash.
Was he so? Obviously, opioid epidemic is a thing in the since the 2008, whenever OxyContin was introduced. Do you all see that in the ER of people coming
all
in?
the time.
All the time.
Do you really?
We have to save a lot of people
And you
and
know,
take care of them because they have a lot of infections.
Okay, so overdoses,
overdoses is a
Specifically.
thing. It's very common.
right?
But then there's like complications from drug use in itself,
Mhm.
depending on how they use it, how often they use it. Like if they're
A lot of them,
sanitary
yeah, their
related.
hygiene's not the best. So they end up having to have medicine.
And, you know, some of the best patients that I've taken care of were on heroin or
Yeah, they're usually the nicest
because,
people.
like,
they really
were
are.
so grateful
like mid heroin.
for the non.
After, I mean,
Oh, really?
they're just
Like-
nice people. I don't know. Like,
And
if-
then others are just mean, but like
some can be, but
some of them are just grateful that you're not passing judgment
yeah.
Right.
and that you're just taking care.
Yeah, I think 98% of addicts are genuinely good people. I
Mhm.
firmly believe that.
Yeah.
I think a majority of them are functional addicts who go to work and have this stuff to keep from feeling sick. Unfortunately, they're in that stage. I know one sad story that I have from the ER is, you have those curtains in between.
Mhm.
The
And-
privacy curtains.
Yeah, the privacy curtain, but you can hear everything.
You don't know what's
that's
going on?
Yeah, you can hear everything that's going on. So in the one next to us, there was a guy there with his kid, and he used to see his feet shaking like this. And he'll be talking about how he got hurt at work or something, some kind of story. And his kid and wife show up after. And she's like, I'm making up names. Henry, what are you doing? And she's like, what? I got her. He's like, I got hurt. I got, doing this and that. So they start fighting. And you see the mom holding the hand of this little girl who's just sitting there wanting to, be with her dad. And
Yeah.
parents are fighting. And from what I picked up from it is he was trying to get
Help.
drugs
Oh.
because he ended up leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Because he got mad and, yelled at the staff and ended up walking out of the ER.
Mhm.
So I was just curious. I see all those signs of like, we do not prescribe. Well, I don't think the ER has this, but I know like Med Express, different places
Yeah.
like that has signs up that says, we do not prescribe painkillers,
Mm-hmm.
up front. So I'm just
Yeah,
curious how much
same.
y'all run into that.
I don't know. Did I
I
run
mean,
into
there's
that?
sometimes like,
Oh.
which again, I've been doing it for a while, that there's people that I can recognize, like, I know what they're coming for. But again, like and a lot of times you treat the patient, if their pain is what they say it is, then you try different approaches first.
Yeah, you start with the little, work your way up.
Mm-hmm.
And like, again, it's up to the doctor, the provider, what they get.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give whatever is ordered.
Do doctors have egos? Are they coming in there and be like, coffee, please? I need.
Never
Have you ever
experienced that down in the ER.
Our doctors are pretty great. Now,
Yeah.
I've heard stories where some have come in like that and they've had to be set in their place. But no, I think we have really good doctors
Yeah.
overall that are pretty knowledgeable.
I don't think that there's like, if I needed to bring like a family member of mine, or like, I would feel comfortable with any
Mhm.
provider.
Sure.
Yeah.
Not to say that like there was one provider that worked with us not long ago that like, if she was working, I would almost request them all
There's-
the time because she was my favorite person in the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like,
Oh, I thought you was going the other way. Like, I
Well, no,
wouldn't
there
work with
are.
that.
There's been a couple of those where
Right.
you're just like,
But, I
no, I
mean-
would not let them touch my child.
and again, like you have that everywhere with every
yeah.
Sure.
profession, even nurses, I think. Like, you're like,
You kind of get into a culture though where I think you have certain expectations, and you get a lot of the doctors, they come from other places. So they have a different way of doing things.
yeah.
So I think sometimes it takes a little while for you to get used to the way they do it, because it's just not the way that our culture at the like where we work at is how they typically does it.
Mhm.
So at first you're just kind of like, wait a minute, that's not how that works. But then once you start to open up to it, you're like, oh, I see where you're coming from, and it does work.
Right.
It just sometimes you got to break down those walls, and it can make it kind of difficult at first, and you can be a little judgmental, but it wears off after a bit.
So the rumor of the RNs do all the work, y'all don't, do more work than the doctors. That's not
I
a thing.
think they are like the brains of whatever we're doing. Like they tell us what to do and then we carry out the task.
Gotcha.
However,
So they're the
But we
generals.
also bring like, that
However,
critical thinking process.
we do bring it to critical thinking, but we do see the patients more than they do.
Mhm.
And if there's a change in a patient, we'll see it before they do. And it's our job to advocate, to recognize that change, and to get something done about that change. And I mean, just like the other day, Caitlin, like she's real good at that. Caitlin, like I told you earlier, she's a phenomenal nurse, and she will fight I don't care if she's in the doctor's face. She will fight to the end of the day to fight for her patients. She is like epitome of what a nurse is. And the other day she had a patient and she noticed something that was not normal. And I don't know how many times she called this doctor, like, listen, I'm telling you, it's not just this. It's not just this. I'm telling you, it's this. Just please, blah, blah, blah. And finally, the doctor listened after this guy's been different places and never got what he needed. She ended up fighting and fighting for him. And when they went and got a certain test done, it turned out he was actually pretty sick.
He was really sick.
Like he could have died, and she pretty much saved his life.
Good for you.
And because she wouldn't let up, because she was able to see and know that what was there is not right, and from her critical thinking and her skill, that's not right, and she will not give up until she gets listened to. And that's one of the things I talk about seasoned nurses and talking about, like that nurse that's kind of hard, that from really the past 30 years experience, they can pretty much, you get it going like that, you can tell the doctors what needs to be done, because you like actually do probably know a little bit.
But this doctor didn't trust me.
No, but like you will have some doctors that have egos that are like, you're just a nurse, you don't know. But also there's that where I am a nurse and I do know. I've seen this patient, I've seen the changes, I understand what's going on. This isn't normal. And from the presentation, signs, symptoms, this is probably what they have, and you could be correct. It could just be something as the change in their breathing, being labored as to what it was before, and they could be like, no, I don't think that's anything. You'd be like, no, this is something. And I mean, I've went in before and I'm like, something's not right with this patient, like we need to move him to this room. I'm calling this, I'm calling RT, I'm calling this. I was just in there, they're fine. I said, no, they're not fine, and I'm not going to stand here why you think they're fine. And I went ahead and made all the stuff and all the calls without their order. And it turned out the patient was not fine. And if it wasn't for, trying to get stuff done, who knows what would have happened? Because sometimes you just know, but the doctor also trusted me enough to know that my judgment might have been right. So he just let me make the calls for a minute, like we're not going to order,
we can't,
critical medications by any means. But if you feel like someone needs a breathing treatment right away, then I'm going to call respiratory therapy and get them up there.
Right.
If I feel like somebody might need an x-ray, I might put in and say, hey, I feel like they need this. I'm putting it in now because maybe they do need that x-ray because something's moving and we need to figure out what it is.
Sure. Has anyone ever whipped out their phone and be like, I got you on video?
I have had that a couple times. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm getting older, but I hate cancel culture. Like, because I'm all about having different opinions. We can have different opinions, but we can still get along and agree. But sometimes it's like the thing, people do get their phones out and they're like, well, I'm going to take a video of you. Like, you can't do this. And I'm like, why? Like, do we really have to go down this road?
And the context is what bothers me, because odds are when they go to whip out their phone, it's like the review thing. They're going to do that when they're pissed off. Everything's already happened. No one's going to know what happened before. And they're going to show everyone what they want to show.
And everybody gets their pitchforks.
Yeah. And then everyone's like, burn about the steak.
And then it's like maybe there was an incident with one person, and then it's like the whole facility is judged by this one incident, like this one perception of like an event. And I hate it. I do. Because then it's like, like the good things that you have done, it's gone. It doesn't matter.
There's a video that released recently, and I won't bring up their names, but it was on Sleazy News. Did y'all watch that one?
One from Logan?
Yeah. So it was a video of one of the employees, and the employee at Logan was quick to say, okay, well, you need to leave. But the thing is you didn't see really any of the conversation.
And I mean, it's hard to post something, and it's no like hate to anybody posting anything, but it's like, you don't know what happened before. You don't know what happened after. You really don't know even the context of the situation to like give this opinion. And then it's like, now you have this person who has a family and both sides blasted all over the internet.
Yeah. And respect to the people posting it. I mean, I'm sure they love the person that they're trying to advocate for. But at the same time, I'm of the opinion of like, what's this going to fix? You know, how's this going to fix what's happened? And if there's obviously there is malpractice that goes on,
Absolutely.
and there's cases that have been won, and that's why the insurance is so freaking high. That's why it's $900 an hour.
Doctors are so scared to do a lot of things.
Sure, yeah. So I get that. Like bad stuff does happen. People aren't perfect, but I don't know. The approach to me is what bothered me with it.
Well, yeah, and you don't even know what they're upset about, and then there's the rebuttal of people being like, another person had posted saying that they were in the hospital at the same time on the room over, and these people were giving them a hard time the whole time they were there. But you hear all these different sides, and like you just don't know what was going on.
Sure.
And to post a one side story like that to make it look like it was horrible, and then there's a numerous amount of people that know that CNO and said that she's actually an incredible lady. And she has done a lot of good things for her staff, and she was caring and compassionate. There's a guy I know who was going through a hard time. He had some loss in his family, and he couldn't get that FMLA act at the time. And she was like, "You just go. Your place is held here."
Right.
Like, she's a very advocating nurse, CNO, and so I'm saying, like, there's just always different sides to every story based on everybody's experience. And just because you post it like that doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah, I've had several bad days, but mine aren't public.
Right.
No,
Y'all's
mine are not.
And I feel like everybody is entitled to like their own sense of privacy, and then something like that happens, and
you're putting.
And I have babies at home.
And I mean, if you tell them I don't want to be videoed, they can't video you. Like they can't keep doing it.
You're not the police.
Yeah. I mean, you can't keep doing it if you say I do not want videoed.
It's private property.
I mean, and there's other patients around that you're messing with their private rights of having protection.
HIPAA.
Yeah, to being there if someone was walking by because you had to walk a patient and they're right there in it. Like, I mean, actually, those people could be setting themselves up for a lawsuit themselves.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
I'm interested to see what unfolds there, because I just, I think like the good you're wanting to do for your family member is not going to happen.
It actually will hinder care too, because a nurse won't want to keep going back in there.
Sure, yeah.
Because they get scared and they're intimidated and they're afraid they're going to do something wrong and being watched and yelled at. You're not going to keep going in there. And it is true that a lot of times the family of the patients can hinder patient care based on the way they treat nurses.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad, but it's true, because you just get to where you don't feel safe being in there.
Well, you're human. I
think sometimes that concept of humanity is forgotten, like in healthcare.
Anymore,
it's like you're scrubs and you're not, you're like a robot. Come in here.
You went to school to do this. Everything has to be perfect.
Yep.
I don't know. I just think back days ago, nursing, people respected it more than what they do now. I just feel like people just don't have any respect for people's jobs and their titles and what they do for a career. And especially in healthcare, I just feel like people have gotten in society where they just feel like they can just treat you any way they want, and nobody has to be accountable for those actions.
Sure.
Unfortunately, as a nurse, you can't do nothing for those actions.
And it's like, well, if I'm mad at you, I'll just cancel you.
Yeah.
And I hate that.
Yeah, I do too. It's we used to have this thing called respect. You can disagree with somebody, and obviously, it's you're dealing with the public, the dying public. McDonald's was bad enough for me. Now, I imagine working at McDonald's when everyone had COVID that I served, that day. It's probably not going to be. It's going to be even worse. I mean, it was hard enough, but I just don't. I mean, I know I respect y'all, and me being a diabetic, ER saved my life, so it's a big deal. So I try to remember, like, there's flip sides to every coin. There's different personalities. Odds are, if you put up with the headache of going through this freaking school, you're pretty smart, and you kind of know what you're doing. So it's like, have the respect for that and the time that went into that. And the doctors too. I mean, you got to go to medical school, 8 years?
Depending on your
something?
specialty.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a while.
Yeah.
Depending on what you want to do in your residency.
And then WebMD screwed it all up. That's what.
Oh, yeah.
I even have to stay off Google.
Right.
I mean, sometimes I'm Googling stuff and I'm like, wow.
spoiler alert, every symptom you Google leads to cancer.
It does.
So,
Well,
Yeah.
Everybody about has cancer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a matter of time you feel like before you get it because everybody has it. You're just like, God bless.
over 90,
Or they have had it.
yeah, over 90% of males get prostate cancer or something like
Mhm.
that. Eventually, if you live long enough.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, most people
women
don't.
and their, you just never know with women and their breast cancer and our diet. And it's just so many factors.
I think my favorite thing lately is I'll have patients ask me about my political views.
Oh, God, I hate it.
And I'm like, we're not going to discuss that. And even now, like, not even professionally, but also like socially, like friend wise, I will not discuss.
You can't
my
talk about it,
political
Caitlin.
views. No, you can't.
No, you're better off not to. It's just too aggressive.
It
That's it.
is. And it's like if you're one way, you're canceled. If you're the other way, you're canceled. Like,
If you're woke, you're
can't
in.
support
If you're
that
not woke,
person.
you're out.
Yeah.
You don't have
I
enough
don't want that person to
compassion.
take care of me as a nurse because they support this person.
Yeah, it's so goofy. And those people, all of them don't give a about any of us. I mean, some of them may, I don't know. But here's the thing. You can't talk about it because it used to be this thing where we could be like, oh, well, what do you think about this? Oh, well, I kind of don't like that, but I do like this.
Yeah.
No, it's like, I disagree with you. I hate you. I want to burn your house down and I hate
Yes.
your entire family. You know,
You're a
it just
bad nurse.
goes, it goes to that extreme.
Yeah.
And I just can't do it.
Even at home now, like my poor husband, we won't watch the news.
You
I will
can't do
not
it.
pay for cable because we're not going to have this conversation.
We can't believe it really either.
Now, sometimes I say things just to kind of spark like that, like ruffle some feathers because I think it's funny. Yeah. Like at home.
Yeah.
But like it's a big thing at work, like professionally now too, that especially like in the very like young population and the elderly population, they'll always ask you like, who did you want for president?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm just here to
I'm
take
like,
your blood. Can
I
you
can't
like,
discuss politics at work. I'm sorry.
good for y'all. That's why I was like, I'm not doing that on this show because, and it's cool in a way too, because I see the following as it grows all across the
Yeah.
spectrum. And that's what I want. I just want to have conversations and not talk about this incendiary stuff.
And I'm like, I just want to take care of you. I don't want you to not trust me because of a
You may or may
viewpoint.
and
not
they
voted for it.
will.
Yeah, or they'll assume. They'll
Yeah.
assume. And I'm like, I don't even care. Like, I don't care.
That's right. They'll think you're inferior.
Yeah. And
They're like, oh, well, you know, she
Well,
must
then-
have not tried in nursing school because of who she voted for. It's so goofy.
it is. And it's a real thing.
Yeah,
Well, people are hardcore. They'll be like, if you voted for that person, I don't want you to take care of me.
sure.
Like, they'll be that hard. I mean, people are that hardcore about politics.
And it's become like,
it's like
it didn't-
you cut your arm off. We got to fix it. Like,
It's
I don't
gotten-
care.
over the last 7 years, that has gotten worse.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm just here to take care of you.
That's it.
I just want to make you feel better or whatever.
That's it. I mean, I love we have a system where we can choose. You know, that's where it
But
ends.
yeah.
Like, okay, let's talk about, you know, UFOs and
Something,
and
like,
I just
Bigfoot.
think more people should be infuriated of how the medical system is so botched. Not who you voted for, but what do we need to do as a nation to come together to fix the problem?
Sure, that's
Like,
yeah.
People have forgotten about unity and fighting as a whole instead of just separating. Because I mean,
Well, they want us fighting.
yeah,
Yeah, they do.
they
because
do.
the more we fight,
They don't.
you ain't solving nothing.
But it's just to me, I'm like, people just need to.
And it's like even now, sometimes, you know, like people talk about, you know, going and working somewhere else or going to be seen at a different facility. And I'm like, that's fine. But like, I've worked different places and it doesn't matter where you work, where you go to be seen. Healthcare is a dumpster fire.
Yeah, and everybody will always come and be like, well, we want to go here or go somewhere else. And it's like, you're not going to get any different care wherever you go than where you are here. Like, I don't know why people keep thinking the grass is always greener somewhere else. Like, unless you need like a legitimate higher level of care, you know, you're not going to get anything different. So I don't understand why people just assume other places are so much better because they're just as short staffed. They have just as much chaos. But I also know where we work, we have a lot of phenomenal nurses that can give you some fantastic care.
Sure.
I
And-
worked at a bigger hospital for almost 2 years. And I came back to a smaller like hospital solely just because like I liked knowing who I was calling, like what their personality was like, or like, hey, like there's one doctor and not like 50 residents underneath them. Like, and I'm calling them about this patient that they have no idea what this patient is like because they've never met this patient.
Right.
And I think that was one of the big things that like, when my son was born back a couple years ago that brought me back closer. And the community here is like nothing like it is in bigger places too.
Sure.
Well, it's also cool when you grow up from here because you get to actually take care of people
Hey,
you
there's
know.
my kindergarten teacher.
Or
Yeah.
like,
I've happened this numerous times,
Yeah.
and your family and friends, and they actually feel better. Like they actually, because people, they come into the ER, to them, depending on what it is, that is like their worst day of their life. It possibly could be.
Usually is.
Yeah.
So to see a familiar face, that actually lessens the stifle of this is horrible. It gives them a sense of comfort, and they feel like that you're going to take care of them or make sure they get a certain level of care, or it already takes some stigma off. And so that's what's one of the better things about working in a smaller community, smaller hospital, is you do know a lot of people, and it just kind of makes it and it's actually kind of cool too to be like, hey, that's so and you think that's my so and so, I took care of them, and or gave them this or that, or I don't know. It's kind of feels good sometimes too to know that you made a difference in somebody's life, especially if it was a teacher that you liked and they made a difference in yours, and now you're repaying back the favor.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We kind of got the base laid out now. I told y'all we're going to go long, but are y'all comfortable?
Yeah.
I want to get into some stories.
Okay.
Whoever wants to bring this up first, and this could be a solo story. This could be one y'all worked on together. What is some of the WTF moments that you have went through since being in the ER?
So, I mean, I feel like every night that I work in the ER, there's a WTF moment, but there's been some stories over the years, and maybe not even necessarily like in the ER, that like I've encountered. And I think that was like my comment on the post where it was like that I had a patient one time who really in his mind was a werewolf. Right?
Yes, I remember now. Okay, tell me about this.
So like brand new nurse at this point in life. And this man he was a werewolf, right? And sometimes you have to like weigh your options of like, do I disagree with this patient? Do I tell them, no, you're not a werewolf? And then they don't trust me. And they're like, well, you're one of them. Like, you know what I mean? Or
I like how you break it down.
Yeah.
Like,
do I try to find the solution, the whatever, to make him not a werewolf again?
Was he hairy?
He thought he was. And he was even like making sounds like he was growling and stuff, and he needed, the antidote to be a werewolf. So like I'm telling you, like I ran all over the hospital because it was something specific, and now it's been so many years that I can't remember. But it was like iodine and silver and like all these things. So I was like
colloidal silver?
Yes.
That's a thing.
And I was trying to find this stuff, like, or at least make him think that it was this stuff to cure this. And he howled all night long. Howled. I never did cure him, but I really tried.
Where is he from? Was he like, did you know his backstory? Like, was he, I don't know.
I don't know if he was like,
crazy?
He was by himself. I mean, there may have been like some like illness underlying, or like, I don't know, but I was, I said before, like you look at the whole person and what you can do to make that person better. And in that moment, the only thing I could do was try to find the antidote.
Right. Have you there's this documentary called Mother God.
Mm-mm.
So have you saw what that silver, let me make sure I get it right. Colloidal silver complications. So they get
where
on
they
this,
turn blue?
Yeah.
We have one.
We have one
that comes in for that.
Did you really?
Yeah.
They still come in?
Yeah.
They're blue?
Yeah.
Because the first time that I walked by this patient's room, like I looked at him and then I was like, whipped my head back and I was like,
yeah.
Because normally when you see somebody that color, like it's not good.
No, you're like, O2 now.
And he did. And he said that, and every time he comes in, he has to explain it. But now I've seen him like 3 or 4 times now. And
It's a toxicity to silver.
This
it's
lady,
a silver toxicity.
So this lady, so she had this like cult, and she called herself Mother God, but she would like take, I don't know how much, spoons and spoons full of colloidal silver every day until she eventually turned blue and her organs shut down and she just died.
Oh.
Wow.
And after watching that documentary, I didn't know this was a thing. It's like we will drink and smoke anything.
Yeah.
If we think it's gonna work, if we brand it
Some
right.
people have exposure.
And some people will put anything and everything together, and you're just like,
yeah, because you have those Kentucky Blue.
The Kentucky Blue people. That was like a genetic thing, though.
That was,
wasn't
yes. It was not.
Some of them are genetic.
It wasn't a result of inbreeding. I got to let everyone know that. I did a video on this.
Really?
Yes. On Appalachian stereotypes. But it was a rare genetic condition. And
Yeah.
it got twisted into. Now, I think they said like on down the line, people got it from inbreeding.
Right.
I couldn't prove that. But the genetic condition was not from inbreeding.
Right.
So anyway. So the more you know.
Yeah, we have one patient that comes in, and everybody's familiar with him, but there for a while, like you would like almost panic when you saw his face because you thought it was like something super severe.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's just
you're like, what? But now you're like, oh, yeah, hey, buddy. He's like,
what's up, Smurf?
Yeah.
How's it?
He's
I
a
don't
nice
know if
guy.
you can do that, but you gotta have.
Well, I mean, after you get to know him, you probably could.
Come on.
Oh yeah.
They don't care.
Some people
They don't care.
really like. You're like, haven't I taken care of you before? And they're like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
you've taken care of me like the last 5 and 6 times. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, we have one. She comes in all the time to the point where I remember I'd be sitting at the far side. I hear someone go, "Kristen, I'm back again," and I'd look up and be like, "What's up, girl?" And they'd be like, "This time it's not for this, but it's for this." I hear you. Like that's how much they're there, and you're just like, "I'll see you in a minute." Like, and you just, it's just all the time.
It's like Cheers.
Yeah, and you're just like, all right, it is like that, and you don't even, you're just like, whatever. How you doing today, buddy? You get to know them, and you already know what to do and what not to do, and it's kind of just it's like if you're a server and the same people come in, you know what drink they like, how much butter you want with their rolls. It's the same in the ER.
That's great.
They come in, you're like, you know what IV, you know what labs to get, and probably start them on this fluid because this is what we're here for.
It's
like
it's not everybody knowing your name. Everyone knows your disease.
Yeah,
You know?
actually, that is pretty true.
Everyone knows your diagnosis.
You do get some of that in there a lot.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That was a good one. Werewolves in Raleigh.
Well,
What we talking?
I know now. One time we had a patient that he told me that he could see the demon of hell in my eyes, and he didn't want me to take care of him. And I was like, "Well, that's fine." And so that was interesting. He was a hard one to batch down
and
with.
even then, it's like once they have that you can't. There's no
Change
coming
it.
back from
No.
it.
Once you're a demon, you're a demon.
I was demonized, yeah. And then we had the one that she was like this patient once that was a little irate, and she called us all like different names and started like stabbing stuff and stabbed the curtains and called us like really like raunchy names, like all of us, like you're this and you're this, and we're just like, okay. And one of the other nurses was like, I'm just not in it to win it today. Wouldn't even mess with her because she was just having a fit. That was a fun night.
Was she tweaking?
Nah, she was just drunk. And then she was like really young. I don't know. I guess she was just too drunk for her own good.
Well, some people.
She done cut her hand open. She's bleeding everywhere.
It's just a little bipolarism. No biggie.
Maybe. I don't know.
I worked on the same floor for a while, for like a good portion of my nursing career. And like over the years, you talk about paranormal, like the hospital, right? And like I was like, whatever, like kind of skeptical, like whatever. I watch Ghost Adventures all the time and stuff, but I never really like crossed that path myself.
You've been watching the drama with Aaron?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, with his wife and hiring a hitman.
Yeah.
I thought that was crazy.
It's pretty intense.
But on this particular floor, if there was somebody like that was close to passing or like whatever, there was the thought that there was like an entity on the floor that like the elevator would start opening and closing between like 2 and 3 in the morning, like the whole time, like open, close, open, close, open, close. And then there was also like I guess a ghost or something. I don't know. But it happened like over the years, like different patients, like it's not like we just go in and like, hey, there might be like this little elderly lady under your bed that might pull your legs. You know what I mean? So like on this same floor, we even nicknamed her. We named her Rose. And different patients, different ages, like over the years in the middle of the night, like they would wake up freaking out. Like, who was under my bed? Like, why did they pull my legs? Like, did y'all do this? Like, why did y'all do this? Like, I'm leaving. And a lot of times she would be more active. Like if there was somebody on the floor that was like hospice or close or, you know, whatever. And like that was a big thing over the years.
Yeah.
I know when COVID was big and we had a floor that was shut down and I'd be working up there and only be like 2 of us on the whole floor. You hear doors open and shut all the time. There'd be nobody up there. And there was one room, the door, no matter how many times you shut it, it always opened. Like you couldn't keep it shut. And it would get kind of cold in there sometimes. But yeah, you'd be like, did you hear that? You'd be like, yeah. You'd be like, okay. And you go look, and it'd be like nobody anywhere. And you go look, and you'd be like, all right, well, let me go shut the door back. But they would just open and shut. There'd be nobody on the floor. I've
been walking down the hallway, and like, we're just standing in a room. And one time, there's clocks, right? There's supposed to be a clock in every room. And there was a clock that literally like came up off the wall and like hit me in my back. And you're like, how? Like, you can see it like falling off the wall, I guess, but like to come across like the room, it's like, how do you explain that?
It's a little intense.
Yeah.
Was there any upside down crosses or anything?
I've never seen anything like that, but there was a patient years ago that there was several of us that were convinced that she was possessed. Like even some of us that didn't believe in like that kind of stuff. Like she would tell us things about like our past or, you know, like our home life that nobody should have known. Or like, and she would tell us, and at this point there was restraints. That's how long it's been. She would be restrained and she'd get out of the restraints. And
Houdini.
Yeah. Like on all fours on the bed. She would tell us that we just needed to like wrap ourselves in the curtain and set it on fire. Like the things, it was, you almost were afraid to be in the room with her.
Wow. Meth is a strong drug.
She wasn't like an elderly lady. Like,
there's a couple out there.
Oh yeah. But I mean, it was just
chasing the dragon.
My favorite story, I think, is there was one time I had a patient that was bit by a beaver.
Oh,
no. I didn't even know that beavers bit, but this person was bit by a beaver.
Wow.
And she had a device on her leg for the wound. It's called a wound vac. Well, you know, sometimes people, when they wake up in the middle of the night, because I'm a night shifter, like I've worked day shift in the past and I'm just not that kind of person. And they get up in the middle of the night and they don't realize that these things are attached to them and they go to the bathroom or whatever. And I thought that she had forgotten that this was attached to her because it was attached to the end of the bed. So I got up and ran like thinking that she was going to fall. And when I ran in there, she was standing in front of me. She was naked. And mind you, before this, she was completely like normal. Like we were talking, having a good time. She was naked. Her hair was like in the front of her face. And I didn't know this until like I came around the corner and she took off running, growling after me.
Did you drop kick her?
I have never ran so hard in my entire life.
Jesus.
Because I mean, like, you just don't expect it. And
should have cross body blocked her right there in the hallway.
It was just reflex for me to run away.
Oh yeah, I'd run too. 100%.
And so then like once I realized I was running, I was like, she's running towards me. She still has this contraption connected to her leg. So I'm running back in there. And at this point, like, you know, everybody else is getting up too. And I have never been like when I came back in the room, she was like laying back on the bed and she had her legs like bent up. And when I came back in the room, she like donkey kicked me.
Oh my.
Like to the wall. Like they say to the window, to the wall. That was like the force that was behind it.
Wow.
And even then, like bit by a beaver and I was like, is this like rabies? Like
what? Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
What
so
is
she was
this?
Bit by the beaver.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So
gotta put some juice in her.
It's like, where do we go from here? What now?
That's nuts.
It's a really bad turn of sundowners.
I don't even think it was sundown. I don't know what it was. Like
I know, that's wild.
it reminded me of like a scene from The Grudge. And I think that was why I was so scared, is because I have never been able to sit through The Grudge. Like as a movie, terrifying to me. I'll watch anything else, but not The Grudge.
It's crazy.
And that's exactly what that was. It was like my inner thoughts were coming out to haunt
Have you watched It Follows?
Mm-mm.
It's really good. There's an old granny that starts walking. Yeah, the concept is the entity takes the form of a human that only you can see, and they spread this possession by, it's like a sexual transmitted disease.
Oh.
And when you get it, you'll just start seeing people walking towards you.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they get towards you, you know, it's bad news bears. But it's a really good movie. Low budget horror movie. It is so good. So I highly recommend.
These grannies, they are some of the strongest women when Sundowner says you ever meet in your entire life.
What's that Appalachian blood?
Yes.
Yeah.
Going through
I mean, they
veins.
can break your hands. They'll be all, I remember this
10
one.
people.
Yeah. She was the nicest. She's probably in her 90s. And she was the most delightful lady during the day. And she'd sit there. She loved to eat her little Cheerios, laugh, and have the best time. I swear, the sun goes down and you're just like, all right. Next thing you know, she's like a daggone bear. And she about broke my hand. One time we're doing something, she took my fingers and put them all the way. I was like, you're breaking my hand. I couldn't get out of her grip. I was like, my goodness, when did you get so strong? Rip out the IVs. And I mean, they'll shove you around. And it take like 8 people to get them like settled down.
This is a reality show. It's like Naked and Afraid in the ER.
But it's like, it's older women. Like they are strong as all get. Like it's insane. And then the next morning after you're like scared to go in there, you're like, you don't know what's going to happen. And I mean, because they'll even turn at you and give you this like look, you know, you're like.
And the smaller
like,
ones
oh
are
my
always
gosh.
the ones.
And then next thing you know, the next morning she's sitting there laughing, eating her Cheerios. And I'm like, do you not remember last night? She's like, no, don't know what happened last night. And I'm like, you're like,
and families, they're like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, it's fine. Like, we're almost just.
It don't I mean, you know, they can't help it, but it's unbelievable how strong, like unless you deal with it, you would never, ever understand how strong they get.
I mean, it's from plowing fields when they was young. Like my grandma was like, yeah, we had one pig. And, I had to skin the pig.
Lifting those bales of hay or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, if that's coming back, but whew. Where's you at? You'll be like, when you're done, like you just can't even compose yourself. You got to sit down for a minute.
Yeah.
My favorite is when they're convinced that you're somebody that you're not.
Mm-hmm.
Or like I had one that used to come in all the time. And when she would sundown, she'd call me Miss Dixie. And she thought that I was the woman that slept with her husband. So like almost instantly after the sun went down, we had this relationship where like she was out for blood.
Donkey kicks for you.
Yes.
She's the one that gets abused over here. We have come to.
You're like the nicest person. Like why are y'all donkey kicking Katlin? I don't know.
Like to the wall. Here we go. Like it is what it is. And I just have a very like kind of flat affect anyways. And I'm just kind of there. And then all of a sudden it's like escalated to 100.
Right.
Never fails.
Yeah, we take all of these Appalachian grandmas, put them on an island, wait for the sun to go down.
Oh, goodness.
Film it.
That would be a show. You talk about Survivor. It'd be survival of the fittest. It would. Who knows who'd make it then?
Well, the way you talk about sundowners, it's like the vampires are coming out.
Yeah, it's a whole different.
Which I'm sure it's sad in a way, but also terrifying.
It's so sad.
No, it's horrible because they don't know what they're doing. Like they literally can't help it.
And you're just trying to keep them safe.
Yeah, because you don't want them to hurt themselves. Yeah.
But then you're the enemy and they're like flipping over the rails.
Yeah. And I mean, you're getting flipped and bit and pulled and you're just doing the best that you can. And at the same time, you're just like, how is this lady stronger than I am at 90 years old? Like, it's like you're baffled by it. The whole mind and connection. 'Cause you're like, this is insane. You're just, it's wild.
She's in her room doing like prison squats, waiting for the evening.
Listen, they definitely could. It's the craziest thing you ever saw. And I mean, it is heartbreaking because they can't help it.
Yeah. And laugh disclaimer.
And then like I said, in the morning when they come, everything's fine. Like they really don't even realize anything happened. And then they're exhausted. So they sleep all day from.
And then they're ready to go.
Yeah. From the war and embattlements that happened through the night. And you're just like, thank God we made it through.
They're in training.
Yeah.
It's like they got to get rest. Too.
I had one that you would try to keep her in the bed and she kept trying to like head dive through the rails. And a couple of times she almost made it and you'd be like, no.
How skinny was she?
Little. And you'd have to like try to, she was little, but she was very mobile.
You have to worry about the little ones.
Yeah. And you had to hurry up and run and like be like, no, no, no. And then you're trying to get them back and they're just swinging and fighting and kicking. And you're like, no, please.
I had one time she was sundown, but she could walk, like very mobile. And she had snuck out of her room because they have bed alarms, but like they can turn them off. They'll watch and they'll turn them off. So she turned it off and she had gone down the hall and woke up other patients and told them that like we were still in their stuff, that they had to leave.
Yeah.
And she had created this like mass panic on the floor that like the nursing staff was like still in their stuff. They were going through their things. Like it was. Yeah.
That bed alarm reminds me, one of the saddest things I've saw is there's a nursing home I went to in Welch and I was there. I was dating a girl whose mom worked there and I saw this big black spot in front of the exit doors. And I'm like, what is this? And it was just black tile. And she said, oh, the patients think that's a hole so they don't walk out of the door. And I was like, that is the saddest thing.
Yeah. People with Alzheimer's have that. There's a book. Oh, I cannot think of what it's called now, but a lady wrote, it's a neurologist based on like the life of if you're developing Alzheimer's. And it's actually a really sad book and really enlightens you to the path and the journey to get there. But there was a rug or something, her Alzheimer's was progressing, and I think it was dark colored. She wouldn't go down the stairs because she thought it was a hole and that she couldn't get through it. And she'd like peed on herself and everything because to her that was a black hole. And finally, like when somebody came home, they were like, what are you doing? And she's like, I can't get down the stairs. There's the hole. And it was really sad. But gosh, that was a great book. I can't remember what it's called.
Why do these diseases exist? I mean, literally Alzheimer's, you forget to breathe eventually, and that's how you die.
It's
like that or other illnesses that, open up other.
Well, there's that case. I think it's in like, I don't know, California or something that I saw on the news where it was a husband and wife. They were celebrities and the wife had died of like an instant.
Gene Hackman
and his wife. Yeah.
And he had Alzheimer's and she was his primary caregiver and he died like from the Alzheimer's because like.
And heart conditions.
His basic needs weren't met. So he eventually just like died.
Yeah.
And to me, that is like the saddest thing.
It's awful.
They're so vulnerable. You know what I mean?
And it's dangerous.
Some of them don't have family and they get stuck. I mean, I think nursing homes, like memory care, I think is a great thing for them to be able to find their own community of people that, you know what I mean? They can still have a social life and everything with. But to me, it's so sad.
It is. Like that's the one disease I would not want to get. For sure.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, what are all these? So, in an area where 50% of kids are being raised by their grandparents, what are all these parents who gave up their kids going to do when they get older? Who's going to take care of them? I feel like, I don't know, people are still useful. There's a lot of good people, but I don't feel like you have that die hard.
You don't have that village anymore.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Don't.
And you see that a lot. Like in the hospital, you'll have somebody that comes in, they don't know where they're at or anything that's going on, but they don't have any family.
No, it's the saddest thing because they'll be like, they go home and they're scared.
Or they live alone.
Yeah. And you're like, do you not have any family? They're like, I have nobody. And like the other day, it was, I think she was like an 80-some-year-old and I was talking to her and she was all upset and she couldn't do this or that. And she's like, I'm all alone. I don't have anybody. And I was like,
and it's so sad.
Oh my gosh. And it breaks your heart.
Surprising when you have somebody that's so well taken care of and their family is doing all of these things for them and they're so involved in the care that like, I'm like,
you're blessed.
Like you're taking great care of them. Like
people that have that is very blessed. Cause then I've had a patient as well who was very sick before and may have had to been transferred. And she was like, I can't. She's like, my husband's at home and has dementia and all he has is me. She was like, my care is going to have to take the backside. She's like, because I cannot leave him. And I thought, where do you live? I'll come.
Yeah. A lot of times too, like they do want their family member to go to like memory care or a nursing home, because at some point it gets to where it's not safe for them, because they wander at night, like they're trying to turn the oven on, like
Sure.
those kind of things. But then it goes back to like, well, they make too much money. So then like they'll take their assets, everything they've worked for their entire life.
Death tax.
Yeah. So it happened to my grandpa.
Garbage.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He was like in his 90s, and my great grandpa, he was in his 90s, had gotten sick. We think he had colon cancer, but like he, we weren't treating it or whatever. But he also had that touch of like Alzheimer's, like maybe some dementia going on, to where he needed somebody to take care of him, stay with him. And he had gone to rehab for a little bit, but like the insurance would only pay for a couple weeks. But then like if he needed long-term care to where he was there all the time, like they were going to seize his farm and sell it, and like all of his assets, his bank account, like everything that he had worked for in the last 93 years of his life was just going to be taken.
That's horrible.
So then ultimately, like he ended up going home, and like family was like switching out, trying to take care of him. And then you have some family members that ended up taking advantage of him. And then like and there's family members, like I have a friend who was taking care of her grandpa, and it was the same thing. Like I helped a couple times, like go sit with him when I could, but he couldn't get into a nursing home because like his income was too much, like his retirement, and then on top of like Social Security was too much.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, yeah. Well, my family, my grandpa is going through that phase of his life, and on, his thing is he don't want to go anywhere else. Like he grew up, or he built this house.
Right.
He didn't grow up in this house, but he built the house. He's been there his whole life, and hasn't really said, well, one day this is going to happen. He just kept going until eventually his body isn't
what it was. Yeah.
What it was. His brain isn't reacting the way it was, and he doesn't. That core thing of like wanting to stay right here is there. So it's like, what do you do there? You just try to figure it out
as you go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's freaking devastating.
It is. It's like our elderly, like they've contributed so much that they shouldn't have to like
worry,
give what they could pass on to the government. You know what I mean?
They shouldn't have to lose everything they worked for just to get health care.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
It's disgusting. Is definitely what it is. All right, y'all. Have we said it all? What are we doing? Are we putting anyone on blast? Let's say names.
Never.
Is anyone, is there any scandals going on? Anybody, I don't know, about to get divorced we need to know about? Like, what's going on in the ER?
Honestly, like, I think most of us will tend to try to, like, we have so much going on that when we come in, we don't even know where we're at.
Right. No, we're super busy. We don't even have time trying to say, like, because 1 minute you're going to have a stroke, then you have the heart attack, you're doing CPR here. One day we had a patient, they found him in a waiting room, and he was unresponsive. And here comes Katlin on top of him, as you see on a movie, pushing the stretcher down. She's on top of him doing compressions. Nice. And it's like a whole thing, all hands in on deck. Like, I don't know. We're just too busy to meddle in other people's business, to be quite honest. There's no like lucid affairs, like what you really see in our establishment. We're just super busy. And, we've all have these times where you're just trying to save a life, trying to keep somebody stable, or you're grieving over a life that you just lost. And it's like I told you that one time, one of the worst days that I ever had was the day that we all worked together, and it was a 4-month-old. And you're just like, you lose these babies. I remember one of my first times ever, I wasn't even a nurse yet, and I was in school, and we had to do all these rotations and stuff. And this lady comes in, and it was her first baby ever. And she was 12 weeks pregnant, and she was given labor, and I had to carry it, 12-week-old still in the sack baby, and try to comfort her. The nurse at the time I was with, she was pregnant, so she couldn't stay in the room because it made her upset. And here I am just looking at this baby, and like, people fight and argue about life being life, but like, I could see everything. I could see his lips. That's the image that'll never leave my mind. You know what I'm saying? And here I am carrying it, putting it in a little bucket. We take her up to where she needed to go to a different floor. And you just sit here and you just think, sometimes when you're at work with these people, you may not like everybody. That's just adulthood. You're going to have people you don't get along with, that you just can't seem to mesh. But when it comes to a trauma coming in, or a code, or someone needing help, no matter how you feel about each other, you're all going to chime in and get the job done, because you're there to save a life and take care of a patient. You're not there to run away because you're bickering with somebody. So we have kind of a really good cohesive unit, to where if we need to, we can always come together no matter what our differences are.
Heck yeah. All the drama is in the other floors.
Yeah.
There is a lot of drama, actually.
Idle hands.
Anywhere. In any establishment,
There's a lot of women. Like I said, it's a more women based. And you know what I have come to find, that I think that I've learned, is when it comes to losses, seems like men handle them worse than women do.
Yeah.
And I have found that to be very interesting.
I'm an emotional wreck.
Yeah. Like here, we'll be sitting there picking up the pieces and cleaning up stuff, and they'll have to walk off, sometimes even go home. And you're just like, and you would just think it would be the other way around, because, men usually don't show emotion.
No, I show all the emotion. I would have already wrote their backstory and made it so depressing.
I found that to be pretty funny.
Hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a domino effect, right? When one of us breaks, normally it's like the rest, are soon to follow.
Sure.
We've come to a thing, though, to show how, like, at the end, like, say we do get a patient in, and for whatever reason, they're coding due to cardiac, respiratory, and we do have to utilize the measures that we do for life, CPR. And that's a whole structure in its own. There's a whole algorithm. When you do those, you have to do your compressions for 2 minutes, and like every 3, you might give an epi. That's for adults. Now, newborns, it's more respiratory based, but like there's a whole thing. People are timing, calling out, and you just have a lot going on. Now, that's like what you do see on TV. You have people pushing, getting IVs, monitor, hooking up. You have, pushing this now, and someone's documenting everything, and the doctor's barking, give me this. And I mean, it really is it's an oddly organized, chaotic system, but it works. But at the end of the day, if something happens, and I know we do it mainly on night shift, it's because we're close like this. There's this card that we have called the pause. And we just take a pause, and we sit there and take a moment to recognize the person that we tried to save, the life that they had, the life that they had for others, the life that they're in. Also to pause for us, for the time that we took to try to bring that life back or continue that life, and just everybody kind of appreciate everything in general. I don't know. I kind of think little things like that we don't do enough of, is pausing, just to realize what happened, what we did, and what we could have, and what we could do to be better. But I just that's an element that we do there, because sometimes you don't get that debriefing that you need.
That's beautiful. It's a human element that I think people need to hear.
Yeah. People don't think that we do a whole lot, but there's a lot that they don't see that we do.
And I mean, we have talked about a lot of the, the flip side of the coin of the bad things, but I have come across some patients that were ultimately so grateful for the care that I provided. Not long ago. I was in Walmart looking my best, rocking some sweatpants and probably some sweatpants. And I had a lady from the vision center that ran over, and she was like, do you have a second to come talk to me? Do you work at the facility that I work at? And I was expecting the worst, what is she going to tell me?
Mm-hmm.
And so I followed her, and she works in the vision center or whatever. And she had told me that over the summer that I had taken care of her son, who was a minor. And she had been looking for me ever since. But with everything that had been going on, she couldn't remember what my name was. And she told me that, I'm all the time buying stuff for patients. If they're hungry, I'll eat the turkey sandwiches, right? But not everybody likes turkey sandwiches. So I'll go to the vending machine and I'll spend, I couldn't even tell you how much money I've probably spent on buying patients food or whatever. And her son had to be transported to another facility for the reason that they were there. And I had gone, I didn't know that she didn't have any money. You know what I mean? And she kept saying that she was just hungry, but she didn't want to eat in front of him. And I had gone and bought her food and like snuck it to her. And, there's stuff like that comes out as you go on. Like, hey, like you were the one that took care of me. But nursing is like something that you get into, like that you don't always get a thank you,
Sure.
But there's times like that it's like maybe there is a reason that I am meant to be there or I continue to go back or whatever.
Yeah. I believe that. More importantly, mayonnaise or mustard on your turkey sandwich?
Mayonnaise.
Yeah. All day.
All day.
There's no...
Mayonnaise.
I love mustard.
No.
Sorry.
Okay, get out. No.
But I love
Deviled eggs.
mustard. I mean, I eat mayonnaise. I love them both, but I like mustard. I love mustard. I love cold. Which I really can't eat that stuff now, but me, mustard and cold cuts all day long. I could
Mhm.
just sit there like charcuterie it
I'm a
up.
person that when I make deviled eggs, it's like mayonnaise with like a
Yeah.
whole like dot. Just
Yeah.
enough for color.
You got to have
Do you put the paprika or...
paprika
Just a
on
little
on
bit
the top for color.
Yeah, just... Yeah.
There's
So
nothing
good.
like for good deviled eggs.
Goodness
Is there
gracious.
anything ER wise that you have a question about that?
I think we got it. Do you play chess like on your break or no?
You don't
it
get
was- we
breaks?
Play cards.
There's no
We play
breaks?
cards.
I don't get a break.
We don't really. No.
No breaks?
No.
Honestly, I can't remember the last time.
Are you now legally they have to give you like a break.
Legally, they give us 30 minutes. which
Legally, they do, but I choose.
You choose
you make
not.
your own,
Gotcha.
or like you eat as you go. I guess.
Yeah, I
You-
just.
I've never stepped away for 30 minutes. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
You eat while someone's coughing on your sandwich.
Mhm.
You're like, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Like-
I choose not to because I just in my mind I'm like, if I was to break away for that 30 minutes and something happened, then
I think the last time that I like stepped away for 30 minutes, and I think I went like to Kroger or something real quick because I was hungry. And this was when I worked day shift. But
Did you pop a Zen?
I came back and my patient had like a STEMI while I was gone.
yeah, like you
was
scared to go
like-
to the bathroom.
Had a
Never
what?
again.
It's like a heart attack.
massive heart attack.
You're
Jesus.
you scared to go to the bathroom because you'll be sitting in there and you're getting your walkie-talkie, patient in bed 4's coding. You're like, oh, that's my bed. And you're like, oh. So you're just like, you're always nervous. You're like, oh my goodness, things can take such a turn.
And you never know. Like, my biggest thing is like, I don't know how many times that people come and they're like banging on the door and they've got somebody that's like bleeding like everywhere because their arm's falling off or like
Jeez. Yeah.
they've
been
shot.
mauled by a dog or,
Yeah.
you have the occasional ones that come in because they've been cut or
Or
shot.
Lately, the trend
They'll,
is
like knock on the door.
It's like you never know when somebody's going to pop up and have a baby in the waiting room.
That happens a lot. That
you know?
how many times that's happened? You're like, just hold it for a minute.
You just got like a baby slide, just go put under the chair. Like,
Oh, you're just like, you're what? Oh. And you get the stretcher and start running to the
I think
it
elevator.
that's-
seems to be a thing. Two of
Yeah.
them got it when they got their certification.
Yeah.
Or, y'all
It's
just
like
popping
every
out babies
ER
everywhere.
nurse's 911 moment is there's somebody delivering in the waiting room or like
I know. At one time I was walking in and the lady walks through the door and she's like, my cousin's having a baby. And I was like, do what? And I was like, oh, I walk out and she's crowning. And I was like, oh, and I was like, oh my God. We get the thing and the doctor came running down. He was fast. The OB and me and him and her, we went running. Like, and I'm like, it's okay. Okay. Just breathe. Just don't push right now. And we're just running to the 3rd floor because we're just like, oh my gosh. Because, yeah, she was crowning. I mean, and they're just, one time a lady was in the bathroom and went into labor and you'll just be sitting there and you're just,
my favorite are the ones that come in and they don't know that they're pregnant.
I
Like the
have a
cryptic
friend
pregnancy.
who done this.
Yes.
mhm.
Not long ago this happened to me and it's like a whole whirlwind like of events because it's like how but then it happens, it's a real thing
Mhm.
and
I think it's a certain body type, and
Has
then
to
the
be.
baby like eats its way through. I don't know
Something.
what I'm saying.
I don't
It like
either.
hollows out,
I just don't know how you don't know,
and
but
then
it's a
you
thing.
don't gain weight, and
No.
maybe I don't know.
I
It's
don't
weird.
either. And
It's
they
so
can be
weird.
full term and you never have any symptoms. It's the wildest thing.
Yeah,
I mean, and it happens more than what you know is the weird part.
it's pretty
We had
incredible.
We had that one time we had a family call and she had her baby in the van. She finally, and they rolled up, she gets out of the car, umbilical cord, everything. Still, we had to rush him in. I was like, oh my God.
no ER nurse wants
No,
to deliver a little baby.
we just don't do that.
We really like are like
Well, that's a
no.
whole thing.
That's a whole
separate
different
thing.
And
separate
it's like-
thing.
it's like one of those like things where it's like every ER, you'll see it on TikTok sometimes, ER nurse to labor and delivery. And then it's like you flip the coin and it's like every L&D nurse to somebody that says they're having chest pain or something. Like,
yeah. There's always that infamous everybody hates the ER. We're kind of like the greenhorn or the whipping boy of the hospital.
I love it. I love knowing that I can be very dramatic and go to this place where people will take my blood.
The other floors hate us. They hate us. And then we call and we're like, we have a patient we're bringing up, and they're just like, they don't like it. And they yell at us because if something's not done. And we're like, we've really been working hard down here, guys. We just, you all have like aides and help, and we have a lot going on. We can't always attend to every little minor detail, but yeah, no, it's like, and it's funny, you'll see these TikToks where they're like, of course the ER doesn't know what kind of skin breakdown they might have had when you call the ICU, or that someone wants to know what diet they're on when you call med surge, and you're like, well, I don't know what their diet is because I'm bringing them to you. Like, I'm not feeding them down here. It's just funny because some of those videos of those comics is very legitimately true. Like, you go through this stuff and you're just like, you'll sit there and argue, give and report, and you're like, this is wild. It's just like, I have to bring the patients upstairs. I don't know what the problem is.
It's a different beast.
Yeah, people do. The ER is probably one of the more not appreciated and most
And I didn't understand. Like, I've worked in different places until I worked in the ER, and then I was like, okay, I get it now.
Do you have a fire marshal limit? Like, okay, we got 67. Well, that's it.
I've honestly never asked.
Okay. I've never either, because technically,
and honestly, I've never had time to count either.
Well, technically, because if there's a mass trauma, they would all come to the nearest hospital, so we'd end up getting them all, and you have to be able to put them everywhere in the facility.
In the
if they're like not as critical, like they might go to the education building, or they might go to like a different like wound or like a cancer center. Like, you have to distribute them everywhere. So
So Katlin, the pandemic happened right after you started, right?
So I graduated as a nurse in 2018. And so then, like, in the middle, halfway through my nursing career is when the nursing pandemic started.
Was you in the ER then?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
So I was working like on a telemetry unit at the time. But like, I think everywhere it was kind of like, in the beginning though, it was like, you can't have a mask if the patient doesn't test positive, because they were like rationing the masks. Because I kid you not, when they said that this was in the United States, you had people coming through the hallways at the hospital with bags, taking our gloves, taking our gowns, taking our masks. So like every shift, you were given one mask to last you the whole week. And you were to put it in a brown paper bag and then put it in your locker, or you're supposed to take it to your car. And when you came back the next week, you were supposed to wear your dirty mask back to work. And it was crazy. It was the craziest. I can't even believe that we lived through it.
Was you scared?
Yeah, there were times that I was scared, because it was like, when it initially came out is when it was the Delta variant, right? And so it was something new. We didn't have the herd immunity. Like, it was taking people out. And if you talk to a lot of seasoned nurses, they'll talk about the trauma of taking care of patients with COVID.
Because, there's a lot of nurses that have PTSD from that.
You would have patients that were smothering, like they couldn't have family with them. And you were just doing your best, like literally watching people.
It's like that. We said that 5 years ago. It was 5 years ago, like 2 days ago, or like maybe a week ago, where the nurse was looking out the window and said, sorry, your family member passed away.
Yeah.
And you have to read it from outside because you couldn't come in.
And then they can't go to the funeral. They just like, they're gone.
I mean, just think how...
it was a big thing. They thought that it could be transmitted.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a short time ago how devastating we were in a place.
I had two really good friends. One came in here and told me a story about it, but he was just talking about how it was the night before they were going to decide the morning if they were going to ventilate him or not. And he would talk about just hearing the moans of people trying to breathe in the hallway. And he would just be sitting there like terrified.
Yeah.
And, everyone that comes in looks like they're, there's an outbreak, which, is what it was, happening with the hazmat suits and all the big suits. I don't know what kind of protocol you all had, but
you have to do a fit test, and it's based.
We had nothing.
Yeah.
In the beginning, because
there was no supplies. You didn't have enough vents for people.
Yeah.
And it was one of those where you had to allocate
And it got to that
Who's
point
worse?
Yeah.
to where it was like, you only have this many ventilators in the facility. And they were talking about the policy of like, how are you going to choose who got the ventilator?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
And
So I imagine you go with age, comorbidities, and that's just
and
awful.
that's terrible. And
It's
then like
awful.
you would have people that were passing and you were trying to FaceTime them during that period because you didn't know what to expect. And like my dad, he has black lung, like he's been in the mines the last 20 years. And like my kids would go to my parents whenever I had to work because I worked night shift, but like we didn't know what to expect. So there was a 6-week period where I didn't see my kids at all because I still had to work, but like they couldn't go back and forth and then risk them, getting it. And it was terrible. And then it was like in the middle of 2020 is when I went and was working in corrections. So then like I was working at the jail whenever, and I won't specify which jail, but during like the height like of 2020 when it was like massive outbreaks and it would go from one section to the other. And like the correctional facilities were like one of the first to get the vaccine. So like I was like one of the first like 30 people in the state to get the vaccine.
Right. And to clarify, I mean, people were dying.
People were dying. Yeah.
Okay. Young people. Because I had a buddy from Welch. They just had a baby while he was in ICU.
I think I remember that one.
Yeah. And he died. And he was like early 40s,
Mm-hmm.
And I had another buddy that was ventilated, and thankfully he made it, but he had a real rough time. And we're the same age.
I mean,
he doesn't have anything wrong with him.
Right.
You'd have people that would be coming, and the husband would be in one hospital, and the wife would be in a hospital 45 miles away, and they had no idea if one was alive or one wasn't.
Sure.
And they'd be sitting there, I mean, it was crazy. I remember there was one husband and wife in a room together, and the poor thing, the wife, she was blind or deaf. She was deaf. Something, she had something, I can't remember, but the husband ended up dying, and she couldn't understand that he had died. I forget what disability she had, but I think it might have been deaf, but she couldn't understand it. And all of a sudden she looked, and they had put him in a body bag, and when they zipped it up, she started crying. She said, "Why did you kill my husband? Where are you taking him?" And it finally clicked to her that he had passed away right beside her. And she didn't understand why, but I'm thinking she was deaf, and she just didn't know what was going on because she, couldn't hear. And finally she looked over and saw him being zipped up in a body bag. And
it was a terrible time too, because like the first like couple months that like it was like March, I don't know, 13th or something, that everything shut down. And it was like before like you really started getting cases, it was like a ghost town in the hospitals because nobody wanted to go to the hospital and then risk getting, COVID. But then at the same time, like it was like you didn't know which patient had it, which one didn't.
Sure.
We weren't testing for it unless they were outside of the country within the last 30 days. So it was, even now it's like crazy to me that.
And massive turnover, right? Didn't a lot of people quit over that?
Well, so, you can't work if there's not patients to take care of. So a big thing during that time was like nurses weren't getting their hours. Like they were getting unemployment until like, I think it was like the fall of that year that we really started seeing a lot of cases. And of course, then it like increased. But then at that time, like people didn't want to come back to the bedside.
they were traveling at that time too, making killer money
with health concerns and everything else. Or you were like, why would I work here when I can go a couple hours away and make twice the amount of money?
Yeah. Like people were making tons of money traveling because they needed the nurses so bad.
Yeah.
We still need them.
I think there's always a turnover for nurses.
I don't know that you need them as much. Nurses are just burnt out at bedside because of the lack of staffing, a lot of the abuse that they have to go through, and they're just mentally exhausted. I mean, you think about it, every 5 months, a new nursing class graduates with tons of students. There's not a need for them. We have them. Now, they're not maybe all of them skilled, but there's nurses. It's just people are burnt out.
There's a constant turnover.
I mean, there is. They get going. They don't realize how hard of a job it is, how taxing it is.
Plus, we're soft.
Healthcare is a business.
I feel like we're soft now. I don't know.
Well,
and this will be a really stressful, tough job to do. And it's like, you know, someone who grew up like playing Roblox all the time, getting whatever they wanted, you know, never really being put through the mill. Yeah, they went through nursing school, which obviously is tough, but
I don't think
every day.
Well, and even nursing school was affected during COVID, right?
Oh, really?
Because you talk about post-COVID nurses. Because before COVID, like you could go to clinicals as much as you wanted to, and there wasn't a concern. Even when I went back to RN school, there was that limitation of like, well, we had to wear these special masks.
Yeah.
And we
had to
could
get
only
those.
be in groups of like 5. And
Yeah.
like we only went to clinicals like 6 times.
Yeah.
Sure.
We didn't
During
do
the height of
whole lot.
COVID.
And then you had to watch where you had to go.
Yeah. Their clinicals were all online. Like they would take care of a virtual patient.
Yeah, now they're starting to be virtual. The clinical stuff is.
And
Yeah.
You don't
then
even go to the hospital
like,
anymore.
in the same breath, you know, every facility is a business.
Yeah.
So-
Healthcare is a business.
It's a business. So then you have to consider like they're looking at these numbers of like nurse to patient, like it's productivity. Like we can only have this many nurses for this amount of patients.
Just many people, yeah.
Or this amount of nurses during this time. And so then it's like, yeah, it's like we're working short, like we're overworked, but it's like meeting that financial demand at the same time.
They always
Sure.
want to find a way to cut the budget in a department to make more money at the bottom line, which I mean, I get it, but still when you have a CEO of massive companies making millions to billions, so they can cut a budget to make their pocket full, so your ratio's less. It'd be different if the money was going back into the hospital, but it's just going into people's pockets.
Right.
I mean, you can look at all kinds of people and how much they make in a year. That's the CEO of a hospital, and it would be outrageously gross considering the amount of stress. You know, if you have 3 people working a shift and you have to take care of maybe 50 patients total, 3 people can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, people are getting burnt out with their license. You worked hard to get that license. You don't want to lose up over that.
Yeah.
So people are leaving bedside nursing. They're tired, they're stressed, they're not feeling heard. And like I said, it'd be different if, I mean, it is a business. Sometimes I think you go in as a nurse thinking that it is a business, but they still care about the nursing aspect, the patient care aspect. But as long as the patient care is making money, then they care more about it that way.
Right.
It's how you feel by the end of it, because you just sometimes don't have. And that's why I always get at kind of, you know, you get frustrated because it looks like neglect on a nurse if you're not given certain level of care, if you don't have supplies to properly take care of a patient. You know, all these things can come back on you as a form of neglect. But let's say you work someplace in a hospital and the budget cuts everything back. They cut back your education. They cut back supplies. They cut back manpower. Why don't they get in trouble for the neglect? Because they're the ones that made the policy or the rule, not you, not your director. The administration did.
Crap rolls downhill.
So there needs to become a new movement, and people like Washington State's doing it, Connecticut's doing it. I've actually looked into it for West Virginia. Washington's passed a thing where they're making administrators get a license that they can be held accountable and not put money first all the time. And Connecticut's starting to do it.
How are they?
There's
not?
an SI nurse that's real big about it because they're like, you know, nurses can lose their license over this. Like, you know, people don't realize it, but if there's not a suction cup in a room, say your ICU, CCU, that's neglect, because that could be what saves your patient.
Yeah.
And if you don't have, you come in on a certain day of the week and there's no suction cups, that's not, you know, and because of budget cuts, that's not your fault. But if administration made these budget cuts, they need to be held responsible too, not just the nurses.
Yeah, I don't see how they're not, because most industries, the owner is going to be held accountable.
You would
know what I
think.
mean?
It's just
But
not how that
just
works.
Not how it works. It's,
No, it's
like your
becoming-
individual contractors.
Yeah, it's becoming a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, people are starting to recognize it. That a guy just went in front of a committee at the Senate in Connecticut. An SI nurse has a whole page of stories of things to complain about. And Washington State's one of the first states is working on almost passing it to make administration have a license just like every other medical professional, that if something happens, you could come up to lose yours too and be held responsible, so that maybe people would realize patient care is just as important as money on the bottom line.
Right. Yeah, and there would be ways to set guidelines of like, this falls under the nurse's responsibility. This falls under the administrator. You know what I mean? It'd be pretty easy to do.
There is There is. It's just accountability.
Oh, right.
It's just easier to push it on other people if you can get away with it. And fortunately, it's us. I mean, you think about it too, like if a doctor orders medicine and they order it wrong, we're the last ones to give the medicine, right? If we don't double check that medicine and we just assume the doctor did it right and we give that medicine, it falls on us.
Makes sense.
Like it's just the nurse kind of is they're just in that balance where the
front lines.
A lot falls on you. So that's why it's like you feel like there's a shortage of nurses. Not always is there a shortage. It's just a lot of baggage to carry to be one if you work at the bedside.
Well, I say let's end it on a Yelp review. If someone's out there listening that's a junior in high school, it's like, I've wanted to be a nurse since I was 7 years old. What's the Yelp review on what they should do after they get out of high school?
If you want to be a nurse, be a nurse. But like, it's not all. It's like Jurassic Park. You know what I mean? It's not always a walk in the park. And you have to come out with this expectation of like being able to accept that it's not what you thought. And I take a lot of students for different colleges in the area as part of their graduation and requirements. And I think that's like one of the biggest things that I tell them is like, don't get discouraged when it's not what you thought. Like when you get past the NCLEX and you think you're at the end of the tunnel, it's, you still have a trip to make. And there's some really great nurses that come out of like the area, but they have to be able to accept that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's hard work. Don't do it for money. Do it for passion. Maybe take time to do your junior colleges, like the junior nursing schools, just to see if you can get an idea if that's what you want to do. Find yourself a mentor. Mentoring is one of the most powerful things you can have in a nursing career. Sometimes it can be underrated. Sometimes it's not something that hospitals can be really great at focusing on. But a good mentor and preceptor can be one of the greatest assets to a hospital because that's what will make or break a new nurse.
Heck yeah. Well, thank y'all for what you do. Nurses saved my life when I was a kid. So, could have been one of y'all that decided my sugar was 900 and, whatever it was. So appreciate it. Dr. Eels in Welch, shout out. He was very cold in the diagnosis, but that's what I needed, Yeah. I need to hear it's not curable. Get over it, child. You're 8 years old. Move on. But anyway, everyone else, please like this video. Be sure to subscribe to Creepalachia if you haven't already. We are on Facebook and TikTok. Very good community growing there. And if you're listening to Apple or Spotify at the audio only version, take a couple minutes, leave a review. If you're a nurse, I want to hear your experience. Comment in the YouTube section. We're gonna get some good dialogue going, but everyone else, always remember, above all else, long live Appalachia.